You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
Meeting of the Branford Planning Zoning Commission to order. It's Thursday, November 7th. I will introduce members of our commission and staff. To my far right, with Commission Member John Lust. Next to John, Commission Member Joe Chadwick. Next to Joe, Commission Member Joe Viuzzo. Turning the corner, Commission Member Fred Russo. Next to Fred, Commission Member Paul Higgins. To my left, Commission Member Marcy Pelusi. Our staff this evening is our Assistant Planner Rich Stecker. Next to Rich is our Town Planner Harry Smith. And back in the corner is our Clerk and Recording Secretary Michelle Martin. I am Chuck Anders, Chair. We have, there are 4 public hearings on our agenda. We do not need to read the notice of public hearing because they're all continuations. But we will follow our normal format for public hearing, which is that the applicant will make its presentation first, ask that you introduce yourself and give your name and address to the record before you speak. And then we turn it over to staff for a staff report and questions from the commission. After that, we open up to the public and again ask that you state your name for the record and make your public comments. Then we allow the applicant to respond to any of the public comments. And we may or may not close the hearing depending on how it goes. With that, we will, and we do have copies of staff reports and the agenda up here in the front if anyone would like to get those. So with that, we will start with our first public hearing, which is items number 1 and 2 are a text change and a map change for Commercial Parkway, a zoning map amendment from BL to the BL hybrid, and a zoning text amendment for the BL hybrid zone. We started that at our last meeting on October 17th. And is the applicant ready to go with that? Yes. Sure, you can grab a microphone.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Carlson. I'm a licensed professional engineer registered in the state of Connecticut. I work with BL companies. I'm pinch hitting for John Mancini tonight. He couldn't be here. I know he spoke before you last meeting on this. So since the last meeting, we have worked with the assistant planner and we've submitted section 4.9 local business hybrid rear BL-HR district. And basically we took the BL district and modified the text to apply to certain parcels of land. And the main changes, as you can see in red in the first purpose, is where we said, in addition to accommodating some commercial use under certain circumstances, which I can go through in the table in a minute. And then in 4.9A2, we added the language, properties that are not fronting US Route 1 or other high traffic prominent commercial roads. So that's the changes from the regular BL district that we're proposing in the hybrid rear district. And the lot area has to be a minimum of 4 acres, and that's noted in the table. We've also added 2 additional requirements in the zone. One is lots shall be adequately bermed and landscaped to screen parking lots from roads and views of adjacent properties. And number 2 is full canopy trees shall be placed along the road frontage every 50 feet. And then we have the table of uses where we added a column on the far right of the page, BL-HR, and we went through and put whether the uses were allowed or not, and then by, special permit, special exception. And you can see going through the list, the column. I don't know if you want me to go through every use and how it's available, or have you read it?
I think just for the record, this is all, nothing has changed since what was presented last
Correct.
meeting? Okay.
Correct. Yeah, nothing's
Yeah,
changed.
I think it was summarized at the last
Okay,
meeting as well.
that's fine. So then I can go through, I know that you asked for some concept plans to see what could go on the sites and then what sort of traffic would be associated with these uses. So what I did is we have 4 different site plans before you, and I'll go through each of those. I don't know, John, if you want to come up and turn these, then I can just go through them individually.
any member of the public wants to see those, you can feel to stand over to the side.
Let's start with SK 101. Okay, this is SK 101, which, let's show them where it is in reference to the map right here where the parcels are. This is SK 101, and it's looking at the development of these two parcels, and it's showing what a potential maximum build-out development could be. And the trip generation associated with this would be a total of 420 trips, basically 215 in, 215 out. Remember, a trip is total, counting in and out, so really it's 215 vehicles total. The next one is SK 102, which is, we looked at this and said, okay, there's talk of a fulfillment center. What could we fit for a maximum fulfillment center on the site? Taking into account, all these SKs take into account the town regulations of maximum of 60% impervious, minus out steep slopes. It's in accordance with the regulations, with the bulk standards. And here we can get a maximum building size of 165,000 square feet. And 165 square foot fulfillment center would generate 1,350 trips total, which is 675 in and 675 out, so 675 vehicles.
Over what time period?
I'm sorry?
Over what time period?
This is the whole day.
whole
This is
day.
the whole day. I'm sorry, yeah, these time periods are the whole day. Then we have the next one, which is SK 12, which is this property right there. And this is existing. This is an existing development. This is actually not allowed in the BL zone, but it will conform to the BL, the new text amendment that we're proposing. And this one has 1,189 total trips, so that's 595 vehicles in a day. And then lastly, the Saks parcel. This one is 95 total trips, 48 vehicles a day. Now, to put this in perspective, if we had to put a retail development on here, like a commercial development in accordance with the regulations, the total trips would be in excess of 6,000 square feet, 6,000 total trips, or 3,000 vehicles in and out if this was a shopping center configuration on the site. And we all know that probably would blow up the intersections. So the proposed hybrid zone and the proposed uses that we've added are very low traffic generators.
And what's the total traffic generation of the 4 parcel for the hybrid scenario?
Let's see,
6.
215 plus, do you have your phone?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay. Let's see, so let's say 430, 1,350,
Oops.
1189, 95.
And that's based on 24 hours?
3,064.
So that's 3,064 trips, so half of that, like just over 1,500 vehicles a day.
And then the other one was,
6,000 total, 3,000 a day, so it's half.
so it's half.
Yeah, correct.
Good.
Does anyone have any questions on that part of the presentation?
How many of those vehicles would be cars versus trucks? Is there any way to differentiate?
From a warehouse, yeah, you could differentiate. I mean, it'd be the amount of employees that would be based on the square feet, the 165,000 square feet. That's not big at all. I mean, a lot of these fulfillment centers, because we actually as a company work on a lot of them for different entities, are upwards of 600,000 to a million square feet plus. And, those have about 460 parking spaces for employees. So, this is probably, if it, on a rough guesstimate, would probably be about 80% trucks and 20% cars. But, it's not anything like you would think of like a big FedEx warehouse or an Amazon center. I mean, those are huge. They're massive. The 165,000 is very, very small.
Do you happen to know how many square feet the Walmart is, just as a visual?
Is it like 200 around?
No.
Is it smaller?
Probably 120.
Okay. I mean, we could get a rough scale if you want us to check it.
No, I'm just kind of ballpark, so 120,000 versus 160, so it's slightly bigger than a Walmart.
Yes, yeah. It's probably about the size of the new East Lyme Costco. If you've
East Lyme
driven
what?
by, the Costco, it's about the size of a Costco.
I haven't been to East Lyme.
Yeah, well, it's opening next week, but
Yeah.
it's the size of, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, so that helps.
Do you, could you tell us what size trucks you expect? I mean, these are not tractor trailers coming in and out of here, though some of them will be, but these are more localized delivery?
There's no specific user right now, so I can't.
No, but just
I
if
can't
it's a
answer that
fulfillment
question.
center in general, I mean,
A fulfillment center will have a combination of tractor trailers and
Box trucks.
SU-30s, SU-67s. It just depends on what the use is.
yeah, well, like a box truck. in
Correct.
Vernacular.
Yeah.
Right.
And are they having the truck drivers bring the truck to the center filled there and then leaving, so the people who are doing routes from the fulfillment center aren't actually parking at the center? Did I understand that correctly?
Right, the truck drivers are trucks, usually contract vendors that are,
So they
it's
bring
their truck,
in the
right,
morning to fill,
right.
and then they leave, so that one trip, it's not cars on site.
right.
Parking.
And some of them, it's different, it depends on the use. If you had, say, a produce company that ends up coming here, you're going to have so many employees and truck drivers, and they're going to actually, the employee's going to come in and park and stay for the day, and then the truck's going to go out on the road for the day, right? If it's a packaging, big warehouse distributor, like a 1 million square footer FedEx, then those trucks are off the road. They usually have remote parking lots for employees, and the trucks are coming in and out of the facility. But like a smaller, produce company, shellfish company, anything like that, their employees are going to park on the site, and then they're going to take their loaded truck out. It just depends on the use.
Right.
Could be a combination.
Would the center be open 24 hours a day for business? Or would it have hours of, 8 to 5?
Depends
How do
what-
those warehousing centers work?
It depends what the use is. It really does. It depends
So-
what the
so
use is, and
is
it
it-
depends what the time of year is.
What I was thinking is it possible that if the building was open 24 hours a day, it would in some ways reduce the amount of traffic per hour?
Correct.
To spread over a 24-hour period
Correct.
rather than an 8-hour, 9-hour,
Right.
10-hour period?
Right.
But,
And then-
so is that possible?
Yes, because some of these facilities, the way they work, depending upon what it is, if you're talking a fulfillment center, they'll get, trucks that'll come in the morning, or not, well, actually, they'll come in at night, then the workers will sort through in the machines all the packages, and then they'll come out the other side of the warehouse in the morning, and they'll go out for delivery. Then at night, another load, trucks come in, and they go in and they unload, and it goes through the packaging system, and then they're put on trucks on the other side of the warehouse, and then they go out. So there's, that's true.
Good, okay.
And potentially this includes weekends too. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe. Potentially this includes weekends as well? So
It could.
24/7?
It could.
Sorry, Joe.
Okay, so if you could help me out here just on the logic on the math. The 1189 is over 24 hours, so that really amounts to 53 vehicles an hour, or an extra vehicle every minute, which is, you never see that. So I don't feel bad about that as a number. On the trips, the percentage is, the math to get to weekdays is 37% of the trips are gonna be trucks, and 80% of them are gonna be cars.
I would say it's
How
probably,
did you get
go ahead.
a number greater than 100%?
Where does it say that? Did it say that? This is from the ITE manual.
Yeah, 37, it just, how did that derivation come out?
That's weird. I can't answer that.
Okay,
I mean, I honestly can't.
it's just
That's from the,
spreadsheets do funny
Yeah.
things.
that's from the ITE. A cell error. It's probably more like 2080.
But it's
Yeah,
not,
what-
it's not necessarily true you're going to have a completely even traffic distribution in every hour of the day. It's
No.
probably going to be, of course not, it's going to be
Right.
peaked up probably whenever they come in the morning to get things to
And
deliver.
it all comes down to who's the
How it's
tenant.
gonna be
You know,
operated,
if we
yeah.
had a specific tenant, we could give you a specific answer, but then you're going to have the ability to see an application when it comes in, because the use is allowed via special exception So that'll be a public hearing, there'll have to be a traffic study done, and then that's when the, a more specific traffic study for whichever parcel comes in will be conducted, and then you'll see that. Right now, all we're speculating on what it could or couldn't be, but the bottom line is that the traffic generated is a lot less than a shopping center or a retail development.
With some of these things, are there, with tractor trailers and deliveries to the center itself, larger deliveries, do some of those occur, 4 AM, that kind of thing?
Depends on-
Logistics,
depends
how it's,
on-
again, how it's run.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering, you've got a neighborhood there, and I'm sort of throwing that out there. If there's any concern, or if the commission wants to consider putting something in that says, commission may establish hours of operation should it deem necessary due to the potential impact on abutting properties, something like that. So just throwing that out.
Sounds like a special exception
Yeah,
item to me.
No, I'm just thinking if in the reg itself, you could give yourself the ability to do it at special exception.
Well, okay.
Yeah, that's all.
Do we know anything about, because I thought I remembered that this was all zoned IG2 at one point, and then it switched to the BL. Do we know anything about that history and why it
It
changed?
seemed to be in the 70s. I don't know why, but we don't have a complete track record of each zoning map and all of its iterations. But there is one from the 70s that showed it, I believe, zone IG2, and at some point, I think by the 90s, it was zoned back to BL. I don't know if
So it was BL switched to IG2, then went back to BL?
it was wasn't BL back when zoning was established. It was a regular commercial zone, similar to the zone, I think, up and down Route 1. And then that, at some point, morphed into the BL, but it wasn't called BL back in the 50s.
But was it ever an I?
It was an IG2. It was an
that
IG2
before or after
briefly.
the commercial?
It was commercial essentially in the beginning of zoning, IG2, and then back to commercial BL, which is what it is now.
but
And I
whatever
don't
the,
Did commercial include IG2 in the very beginning? So it was sort of like one all header that then got sort of divided and they,
I don't think so. There was industrial zone designation back when zoning was established. Usually there's, residential, commercial, industrial, so that was true even back in the 50s.
Okay.
I mean, the uses that we're showing you, on these sketch plans, they have to come back through via special exception anyway, so
right.
you can determine landscaping,
Oh, yeah.
traffic, I mean,
Yeah.
at that point in time, if, whatever.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about sort of the history in a more general standpoint and when, the parcel C was built, because that seems to have sort of an IG2 feel. And did that happen when it was zoned
Yeah,
IG2?
Because that doesn't conform to the BL regulations.
Right.
Any other questions from commission members or staff?
Could I
Absolutely.
We're in receipt also of a letter that we got late today. I think you all have it too. It was submitted from the attorney's office. I don't even want to try and pronounce everything, but I think Fasano, Ippolito, Lee, and Florentine LLC.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not an attorney, so I can't refute any of the legalities or the cases that are cited. But, we don't, this isn't spot zoning. I mean, there's things that can apply elsewhere in town if they meet our proposed size requirements and location, and they're not on a main road. So we don't feel that it's spot zoning. Also, there's reference here to fulfillment center, and it talks about parcels, which is kind of irrelevant because it doesn't talk about, vehicles or size or anything, because you could have a parcel that's a refrigerator, or you could have a parcel that's a cell phone. So I think that's kind of, I'm not sure what the point of that is in there. And I know that, like I said, you can't fit an Amazon fulfillment center here. It's not big enough.
Did you have any other comments to the letter that you'd
Do
like to?
you have any other ones that? do you- Yeah, and then the applicant one.
Just John, for the record, John Schmitz, project manager with BL. Just to address that again, so our project, or the proposal is to change 4 total parcels, 4 parcels with 3 separate owners. The total acreage of the 3 is over 30 acres, so it's not a small section of land. It's actually significant. And as was stated, assuming that the text amendment is passed, and and that zone now becomes a designated zone. It can be applied at any parcel in town that meets the criteria. Now, what we're saying is basically we're coming in first. Next week, there could be another application, but somebody's got to be first to adopt that zone, and so that's why we're here with our parcel. So it couldn't be applied at other properties in town, so I don't agree with the opinion that it would qualify as spot zoning.
Now, we have someone else from our team that's part of this. Can
Sure,
he speak
absolutely.
first before?
Absolutely.
You wanna go there?
Is it? Hi, I'm Jeff Shapiro, one of the owners of the property. Our family owns the property. I've spoken to you before. I did want to respond to the letter that you have in the record from the attorney. His first concern was spot zoning that's been raised before. I mean, this is not spot zoning. As previously mentioned, it's available to anybody in town that would meet the requirements that we've put in there. I mean, we have two applications before you. One is to create this hybrid zone. One is to grant us the hybrid zone. Theoretically, you could accept our application to create this new regulation and deny us the application to designate our property as this new hybrid zone. So it's not spot zoning, because if you create this new regulation that you can, and deny us, you could. So that's not spot zoning, because it's two separate applications. His second concern was that the language presented was insufficient. Now, we actually took the exact wording in your regulations for certain IG2 uses and included that in the hybrid zone. And the reason we didn't include them all was because it was requested of us that we not change our zone to IG2, because that would include things like contractor yards and auto junk yards and things like that, that it was expressed to us that the town wouldn't want those kinds of uses up there. So we specifically left out the uses that were requested to be left out. The third concern was that a justification for this change has not been presented very clearly. I think it has, and there's two very clear justifications. One, as presented, is that the cost of road improvements to develop these sites as a retail center are in the range of $10 to $20 million due to the changes in town and state traffic regulations that have occurred since this property was originally zoned for this use. And it's pretty clear that nobody's going to spend that kind of money either in government or in private sector to make those road improvements necessary to support this site as a retail use. Also, as we're all pretty well aware, current market conditions do not support large retail developments, as most large retail centers in our area have vacancies. It's common knowledge that the trend for retail sales is moving away from brick and mortar stores and more towards online sales. So the chances of developing this site as a big retail center are diminishing every day. And that's not unique to these four properties. That's applicable to all the interchanges in town. His fourth concern is about safety and welfare issues. And the reality is, as you've heard, is that the uses that we've proposed will result in a reduction of traffic. We're proposing uses that are about 20% of what a retail use would be. And there's also the concern that the character of traffic is going to change more to truck traffic. And the reality is that truckers are professional drivers that require a lot more testing than the thousands of cars that are coming in and out of a retail center every day. And also, if you go up and look at a Costco or a Walmart, you'll see plenty of tractor trailer trucks coming in and out of there every day. It's not that this is something unique to a warehouse. When we ran a warehouse facility up there, we had nowhere near the amount of trucks coming in and out of our place that Walmart has every day. his last concern is that creating a new zone will result in the availability of other properties to apply for the new zone. He's suggested that this be tabled and that the commission take on the responsibility of creating new regulations that could apply to all the properties at all the interchanges in town. And that's not really our job or the commission's job. It's available to anyone that wants to apply. So that's our response to the letter that was sent in. And the other issue, which I don't really think is an issue, but just a historical note, is that this property was originally zoned as BL. When we purchased the property, we purchased it for the purpose of operating our shirt manufacturing and warehouse facility. And to do that, we needed to apply to change the zone to IG2, which we did. And then after the shirt company moved out, we had an offer from Stop and Shop to develop the property as a retail center. So then we came back and applied to change the zone back to retail, which we were granted. And Stop and Shop kept the property tied up for maybe 15 years and did nothing with it. And then once we got rid of them, we went about trying to develop the property as a retail center. And there just wasn't the interest.
Just curious what the time frame was. Do you recall?
We purchased the property in 1980, and that was when the property was changed to IG2. And then when the shirt company moved out, it was 1988, 89, and then we got the offer from Stop and Shop to develop a retail center, and that's when we applied to change it back to retail, to BL zone. And then when Stop and Shop finally, and they applied to this commission for a development and was granted the permit to do that. But when they applied to the State Traffic Commission for their permit, they were denied until the Amtrak Railroad Bridge was built. And then once the Amtrak Railroad Bridge was built, there were new regulations in town that made it more difficult for them to develop, such as the queuing. And that was something that regulation didn't exist back when they first purchased the property or bought the option on the property. And also I think that their whole market changed too. Their whole market philosophy changed. Actually, you've seen grocery stores close, which, 30 years ago they were opening, now they're closing. So they became uninterested, they left. We went out and tried to market the property to other people and couldn't find anyone, mainly because of the cost involved in modifying the roads to be able to handle the traffic that would be generated by a development. There was articles in the New Haven Register, front page articles, that showed a 400,000 square foot retail center up on our property that Ceruzzi was trying to develop. But when it came down to the cost of having to alter the roads, it was prohibitive. And also most of the retail users want a four-way interchange that doesn't exist there and really can't exist there. The $10 or $20 million cost doesn't even include a southbound 95, southbound exit for us, because to do that would require impacting a lot of wetlands. So even the $10 to $20 million improvement would require a realigning Route 1 and getting a northbound entrance from our property. But so we came up with the idea that that's not going to work. We need to try to develop our property for less traffic usage, for lower traffic impacts. And that's what we're trying to do here. And I think that would be useful for other properties in town too, to have that flexibility. To be able to develop something like what's at exit 56, where you have a lot of small users and a lot of variety of development. And that's it. I don't know if you have any questions of me, but. Oh. Well, the other thing too that is kind of upsetting is that you get a letter from an attorney and they don't disclose who their clients are. I mean, I know, and I've spoken at many public hearings in many places, and usually the first thing somebody asks you is, what's your name and where do you live? And here's a person who wants you to listen to them, but they won't tell you really who they are. So I don't think that there should be a lot of weight given.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does the applicant have anything else that would wish to present at this time? All set? Any questions from anyone? Are we ready to open it up? Any members of the public wish to comment? Yes, ma'am, please. Sure, just come up and grab a microphone.
Hi, my name is Dr. Shirley McCarthy, and I want to read a letter that several of us wrote. This communication addresses the proposed zoning regulation text amendment as described in the September 4th, 2019 memo to the Commission from the BL Company representing applicant Chris Shapiro. The applicant is proposing the creation of a new hybrid zone for 4 properties at the Exit 53 interchange. We support this productive use of this property and the creation of a new hybrid zone because it's smart growth or smart development. And we also commend the town planner for his thorough work on this issue. Nonetheless, we strongly urge the Commission not to rush to apply this proposal to all of the other I-95 exits, as suggested at the previous meeting by 2 attorneys. All interchanges are not created equal. Each has its own planning considerations, thus following those recommendations to equalize all the exits could prove to be short-sighted. We trust the Commission will take the long view. Signed, Lauren Brown, Elizabeth Alcorn, Pamela Roy, Judith Miller, and myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to hand out a copy of what I'm going to say to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Janet Reisman, and I live at 699 East Main Street in Branford. I oppose the creation of a BL hybrid zone. Making this zone change is a dangerous step and could set a dangerous precedent. As I will suggest shortly, there are other ways to accomplish the common goal of making the area around Exit 53 more attractive and useful, but let me first express my warnings. Acceding to this proposal would be a terrible mistake for the town's own control of the zoning process. This sort of one modification fits all zones, hybrid, could well be the modus operandi or the Pandora's box that would allow more self-determination among developers within such hybrid zones for their own purposes, with less stringent controls on external appearance and bulk, and less overall benefit for the character of the town. Once the precedent has been permitted in one place, any developer would have grounds to instigate a lawsuit to force the town to allow similar privileges elsewhere in Branford. I think the Commission should stop this precedent in its tracks before someone requests other hybrids, a hybrid BR, a hybrid IG1, a hybrid IG2, and a hybrid anything else, and so on and so forth. In fact, it greatly concerns me that the creation of this new zone is being recommended by the owners of land at Exit 53 for other IG1 and IG2 areas and for other interchanges with I-95. There's also a hint of, let's bring an e-commerce fulfillment center to town. Branford doesn't have the topography, nor the space, nor the road capacity for such a thing. Instead of creating a very pliable and manipulable hybrid zone as a catch-all for anything a developer might want, why not ask that the current zone be amended for the specific uses the owner wishes? At least then, the uses would be more transparent and predictable. Or if that is not possible, why not change the zoning of the area to IG1 or IG2 or commercial park? As Harry Smith notes in his staff report, the area around Exit 53 was in fact IG2 between 1973 and 1992. Why not revert to that stage? Applicant Chris Shapiro's memorandum states that Branford zoning laws do not allow the development of self-storage facilities in a BL zone. According to my reading of the zoning regulations, they do indeed allow self-storage. In Regulation 4.8.k, climate-controlled self-storage facilities are allowed by special exception in a BL zone, whereas plain ones with no climate control are not allowed. Why not simply make the appropriate minor adjustment here? Most people today want their storage facility climate controlled anyway. And if Chris Shapiro and the other owners of the parcels at Exit 53 want manufacturing use number 2 under Regulation 4.8.I, why not simply let them have that by special exception, especially given the history of the parcels as IG2? In any case, the uses that are allowed under a BL zone are so varied and myriad that I am sure the owners can find something among them to enable them to put their land to good use. There is, in short, no need to go to the overarching extreme of creating a whole new variety of zoning to make the abandoned area around Exit 53 vibrant again. A few minor changes will do, and the town will not have a bigger, broader, unspecified zoning classification that may turn out to be uncontrollable and which could be used to push the town in directions it doesn't want to go. Say, for example, in the direction of allowing a very large distribution center, as soulless and unattractive a facility as can be, to come to Branford. I urge the Commission to consider very carefully the ramifications of allowing such amorphous and unspecified hybrid zones. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to comment? One more time, any member of the public wish to comment? Seeing none, does the applicant have any comments or a response to the public comments?
Hi, I'm Chris Shapiro. I'm the applicant. I would like to speak about both public comments. Excuse me, I forgot both ladies' names, but I want to speak to the first lady's points. I completely actually agree with her that, and that's you got the letter from attorney Nick Migione about how he opposes this, but really what he told me last time was that his client Wayne Cook, if we didn't get in on him and do this with him, then he would oppose us, and then he did. So what we told him was that maybe it would be okay for his client, but they would have to come to you and do their own application because their properties, as the first lady said, are much different than ours. So their whole process is a lot different. And at the end of the day, we're not harming anybody. You know, the second lady spoke to how you know, it's going to be more versatile and myriad. But again, we have to come back to you guys with anything we want. She'll get her chance to speak about how ugly the building is, and regardless of how pretty the building is, people like her will say how ugly it is. Because in reality, there's always going to be somebody anti-development like her. But the reality is that we're trying our best. We came to you guys a year ago. We got this idea to do this whole application from Harry, and we helped. You know, we all brought our ideas together. We worked with the town, and again, we put something before you that we think is very fair and acceptable. You can always take an application and, like the second woman did, go through it with a fine-tooth comb and pick things away from it. I was in the debate team when I was in high school too, just like Nick Migione was, I'm sure, and I could pick at stuff too. But the reality is that we're trying to help. We're trying to work with everybody. We're trying to make less traffic uses. We've had the property since before I was born, and we can't develop it because of the limitations. So we're trying to do something that can make sense for everybody, including the town. I could have brought a bunch of lawyers here tonight and threatened, like Wayne Kick does with his lawyers, and sue the town, but that's not how we want to be. We brought engineers that are trying to give you guys information. We brought ourselves that aren't threatening. We want to make a deal, you know, we want to do something nice for the town. I don't want to put a big fulfillment center there. The e-commerce fulfillment center was an idea based on the fact that a lot of businesses these days are moving towards e-commerce. So they're shipping out of, you know, their offices and warehouses. That's not Amazon, that's not FedEx. 99% of them are mom and pop places that have an online business that need a storefront because it became too big, you know, for their garage, and they need to ship out of there. I mean, that's our vision is not for a FedEx or an Amazon or something really scary and ugly. And the reality is that what our vision is for this area is something that has lower traffic uses, that brings high-paying jobs to this town, that presents something that this town likes and that we like, and that's beneficial for everybody, including us, but for everybody. I mean, I'm not some random person. My grandfather moved to this town. He lives in Evergreen Woods now. He loves it, by the way. And, you know, this isn't some random out-of-town corporation, you know, based in Denmark or whatever that's bringing a bunch of lawyers here. You know, we're local people. We live in Clinton. You know, we've grown up in the Branford, you know, Guilford area. My grandfather, you know, has retired here. And we don't want to just shove something down everybody's throats that's not good for the town. You know, that's why we're here. So I don't know if you guys have any questions while I'm up.
Any questions?
Okay.
Thank you very much,
guys.
Great, thank you. Okay, I think we can close this matter as a public hearing, and depending on our agenda, we may at least discuss this later on. Thank you. That brings us to our next item, which is, so that was item number 2, by the way. Item number 1 and 2, where we incorporated that into a single public hearing. So the public hearing was counted for both of those. So that brings us to item number 3, which is Peter Kushner, 3 Elms Road, special exception for oversized accessory structure. Is the applicant prepared to move forward with that? Sure, right up front. That would be great. Just, I don't know if they can catch you on the camera.
I might pull you back a little bit. Wherever you want.
My name is Peter Kushner. The property that I'm talking about is number 3 Elms Road, also known as number 5 Elms Road. My name is Peter Custerer. The property I'm talking about here is number 3 and number 5, 3 Elms Road, corner of Thimble Islands Road. I've already been approved long ago by the ZBA for the exact location, size, height, use of the proposed detached barn for several reasons. If it was attached, it would be sufficiently, the size would be more than sufficient within the land to building ratios and floor area ratios, et cetera, all of which I demonstrated to them, and I have copies of it all. Moreover, and the reason it can't be attached to the house is because all the land between the proposed barn and the house is dedicated, required, set aside as future reserve septic area by the Health Department, which has already approved that. The digging has been done, the testing of the soil has been done, and that's all ancient history at this point. So, so even though we've been through all these things and have 36 petitions of immediate neighbors in favor of the barn, one of the main purposes of the barn is to sometimes house some of the boats that are in the yard. I have boats, outdoor storage of boats in the yard, which are grandfathered. In the 1999 zoning regulations, when I bought the property in the year 2000, the 1999 zoning regulations were in play, and it said boats and trailers, which is plural, was absolutely allowed. It was a recent change in the zoning law that now says you can only have one boat and one trailer in the yard. That's all been dealt with and grandfathered and approved by the ZBA. So I continue to have the right to store 8 boats on the site. They are not commercial. This is not a commercial operation. Those are my boats. That's my hobby. That's my passion. Where I live, across the street, I don't have enough land to store anything. So one of the other reasons for the barn is there is an extreme need for storage space that is not in a flood zone. Everything I have in my yard and everything my tenants have in this building, in the basement, is subject to flooding. In Hurricane Sandy, we had 2 feet of water in the basement, and I had 4.5 feet of water in my house on 8 Indian Point Road, which is basically right across the street. So, having done all these things for over a number of years now, I've been to 5 different ZBA meetings. I'm told that as a formality, I need to get a special exception approval for this detached barn above the typical size of a detached barn. One of the points I made was that if you think about it, and I was granted the allowance to have the barn be larger than the primary structure for 2 reasons. One was there's no definition of larger in the zoning book. By that I meant, and I expressed that on the one hand, the footprint of the barn is larger than the footprint of the primary structure. However, the square footage of the barn is a whole lot less than the square footage of the primary structure. There's no reference to that, so that was granted and acknowledged and approved by the ZBA. Let's see. So that had to do with the size of it. And the fact that it's detached is because of the hardship associated with the future reserve septic area, which is, I already mentioned, is already approved and are actually required by the Health Department. So, one of the complaints about one of the neighbors was seeing boats in the yard. So one of the purposes of this barn is to be able to store and work on my boats, not commercially, just my own boats. Get some of them out of the scene. But having already agreed to all the provisions that the ZBA required, which required an enlargement of the parking area and required a moving of the dumpster. It's a slightly different location, a few feet away from where it is now. And and a lot of plantings, a lot of landscaping, which I agreed to do for any place where it's visible by the streets. This is Thimble Islands Road. This is Three Elms Road. There's going to be a lot of plantings here. It's you can see them here in yellow near the dumpster. Three Elms Road, and Thimble Island Road here. Also, a bunch of plantings along here and all along the frontage of Thimble Islands Road, which was granted, the setback for that was granted at 3 feet with landscaping to be 3 feet wide. One of the issues with the landscaping there is flooding. But anyway, I do plan to do some landscaping along the Thimble Islands Road version, but it's going to be, I have to be, it's not just a matter of plants, because the mulch and the plants, the mulch all floats away every time we have a flood. We've already had 2 or 3 floods this summer. So, but I have a plan for a, landscaping there that'll be, they can't float away, and that and they hopefully can't get destroyed by the water. But anyway, that said, I'm here to simply get the approval of this barn, because I'm told I have to have special exception approval for any structure that's freestanding above 15-foot height, 750 square feet, like I said, which was already approved. The only thing I'm asking for, other than that, is to waive, since I've done so much in the way of proposed plantings and landscaping here, I already have some along here. This area along the rear property line is used for some of that boat storage legally. If you check your own zoning book, you will see that it says that boats and trailers can be stored, cannot be stored in street setback or sideline setback. And I was denied the right to store them in the sideline setback area by the ZBA. But the rear property line, the rear setback is not referenced at all in the zoning book. So if it's not referenced at all, it seems to me it's perfectly legit. Not to mention the fact that it's been there for 19 years with the former approval of the former zoning enforcement officer, Justine Gillen, many years ago, only to find out in recent years that, according to Jennifer Aquino, that Justine Gillen didn't have the authority to grant that, which between the town and her, it seems to me. But as a layperson, I was simply trying to rely on a judgment made by the public official at that time. Anyway, that said, and she even wrote a letter to Jennifer Aquino saying so. But anyway, it was denied on the setback, but there was no reference whatsoever to a denial along the rear property line, because there is no reference of it in the zoning book to begin with. Having said that, the barn was not, the size of the barn was not only approved, but the use of the barn. And the use is essential, because to have a lot of plantings, if I understand you correctly, you're looking for 10-foot wide plantings in a 10-foot wide setback area and in a 20-foot wide setback area here. And I very much need access to be able to maneuver boats, trailers, cars in and around this barn. Any place where it's publicly viewed, that's not a problem. But back here, these property owners all have their own growths, trees, shrubs, scrubs, whatever. Wouldn't even have any visibility of such a plantings. So not only that, but there's already a 6-foot tall fence all along this line here, so that the neighbor doesn't even have to see the boats. It would never be able to see the landscape. So that said, the usage of this barn requires the usage of the surrounding area around it for maneuverability. Having said that, I'm here to beg your permission to do so. Been a long time doing this, since 2016, and spent a lot of time, energy, work, and efforts, and in the meantime, done a lot of things for the benefit of the community as well, which even you know about the launching ramp down there, and donated $1,500 toward that. But anyway, that said, this is the picture of the barn. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's not just some metal building. This happens to be a drawing done by country carpenters up in, I forget the name of the town, but this would be the front facing the house. This would be the front facing the house, so that would be facing this way. This is the side facing the street, which would mean this side here. This would be the other side, although there may be one change, and it's referenced in your,
Stony Creek Architecture.
yeah, referenced by the Stony Creek Architectural Review Board, who, by the way, unanimously approved this barn. So one possibility of having a door up here with some kind of a crane can move, not a crane, but a lift that can move out, put stuff on the second floor. But anyway, having said that, and this would be the rear property. I could put a window or two on there if anybody wants, but it's an absolutely gorgeous barn. This this is what the interior looks like. This is a picture of a barn. It's of a friend of mine up in Old Lyme. It's exactly the same barn, the only difference being the shed dormer versus this, and the only difference being another door on this end. This is the end facing the road. Any questions?
Any questions from the commission? at this
I was
time?
wondering, is there going to be a bathroom and kitchen inside there?
No. No, it's not a residence at all.
Running water?
Huh?
Running water?
I haven't even thought of that, but if I did, I'd have to get approval of the health department for that, I assume, but no, that's not the plan.
Rich, did you do the staff report on this?
Yes, I did.
It is.
Okay, yes, I did. It should have all gone out with the mailing, and you received it over the weekend. I've met with Peter a couple of times. I'll just kind of, I think the key here is that the barn has been, accessory use has been approved by Zoning Board of Appeals, and I listed the various approvals in terms of, structure, size, reduction in inside setback from, as noted, from 10 feet to 3 feet, and landscaping strip, reduction in parking size from 1018 to 9 by 18. The dimensional standards I listed there for boats and trailers exceeding 14 feet in length shall meet the street line and side setback requirements for buildings and other structures as specified for the zone they were located in. So I just going through that, I think the key was to try, this is, Peter explained it quite well, and he's got a whole box full of papers explaining the various stops at the Zoning Board of Appeals and various approvals and some areas where there's been a history of violations, appeals, and variances. We met with a couple of the neighbors, Barbara Chesler, Karen Dahl, and who have been not pleased with the appearance of the area, and their main concern was just moving the dumpster from the corner to another location, parking location. For my, so it's a timeline, 11:01, I sent out the commission staff report. I met again with Peter and reviewed with him the staff report and took a ride with him to the site to review some of the impact of the requirements. So I think the issues are the existing Stony Creek granite blocks for the 3-foot landscaping strip. I think Peter's looked at trying to complement that with river stone due to flooding, which disrupts the planting beds and mulch. And then planting bed landscaping around the barn was not considered practical for movement of boats and trailers. So I think I've tried to discuss with Peter that, you know, the zoning board of appeals have different regulations that allow for the variances. However, because this is a special exception and requires landscape improvements. So I think we're kind of at a head in terms of the landscaping that was approved by the zoning board of appeals seems to be adequate, and I've listed some other conditions that would put a little more landscaping around the barn and on both the north side and south side strips. Stony Creek Village District did approve the Architectural Review District did approve the design of the barn. It's not, let's see, special exception criteria was reviewed. It's not in the Coastal Management District. So I listed some conditions, and one would be the prior to issuance of a zoning permit or the authorization for issuance of a building permit, the following site plan revisions shall be addressed to the satisfaction of the town planner or other staff of the Planning and Zoning Commission, as may be indicated. And that would be just to complete all the improvements listed on the site plan that was submitted.
To the ZBA.
To the ZBA, yes, sorry. But it was also, right, the site plan that was, right, submitted to the ZBA. Drainage improvements shall be added to the satisfaction of the town engineer to capture the roof drainage from the barn structure. And then provide a detailed landscaping plan showing proposed landscaping and existing plantings to remain, including location, size, species, amount of plantings for the site. And that's where we indicate that a front yard landscaping strip of at least 20 feet along 3 Elms Road to be extended to the proposed garage per section 6.3F front yard landscaping requirement. And then the second would be a 10-foot wide planting strip needs to be extended along the rear property line to the east of the Japanese holly plantings indicated on the plan. And then planting beds needed to be 40% of the circumference of any building. And again, these are the requirements that are listed in the zoning regulations. But I suggested that Peter put together a modification or seeking a modification of landscaping requirements are only permitted by commission when warranted by excellence in landscape design or existing vegetation used to meet or all or part of the landscaping requirements. So Peter has put together a waiver modification request that just came in today on that.
Okay. may I say a little more?
Sure.
Yeah.
Just to let you know, the only reason that these improvements haven't been made here already with respect to the relocation of the dumpster and any of these plantings here was because we were in appeal in the courts for a while. I dropped the appeal because the attorney got sick and all that other business. And when I called Jennifer Guino to say, listen, I'm all set to do this stuff, I'm just trying to line up the contract. I said, oh, you can't do it at all. I said, what do you mean I can't do it at all? Well, as long as you're in appeal, you can't do it. So that's why it's not done. I'm perfectly willing to do it, and always have been. I wasn't able to do it during the summer because that's when the parking lot is used, and that parking area is going to have to be used as a staging area for the equipment and so forth when they do the work. But so I was planning to do it all at the same time. But I'm perfectly willing to do this before I get my building permit for the barn, although I don't see any reason why it should have to be done before I get the zoning permit for the special exception. Because I still need to get a building permit, and until they do that, I don't expect a building permit. That said, also just to let you know that the boats that have been historically stored along this rear property line here are up against the 6-foot high fence where they're invisible, is as far away from the road as possible, which was an accommodation to Barbara Chesler, who lives up the road here. The furthest away from the road, the better. Either that, or we kick them up 15 feet from the road up here. That'd be far more visible. So I'm trying to accommodate the neighbors here, but there are certain limitations associated with the use and the necessary space around that barn in order for the use to be functional. Having said that, I'm perfectly willing to do things, but the one thing they need to seek a waiver of is that level of that kind of landscaping up into areas where it isn't even that visible. And it definitely conflicts and let me give me the right term. Absolutely necessary to be able to maneuver cars, trucks, and boats and trailers all around the barn and upper yard. I'm sorry, I'm not a lawyer here, so I'm a little bit less professional. Putting such landscaping around the barn and within 10 and 20-foot setbacks is also a guaranteed barn mold and mildew source, especially as it grows larger. The only appropriate landscaping for these upper areas is regularly mowed lawn. After all, the two apartment residents on the site, in the home on that site, are also feeling entitled to sufficiently sizable human recreational backyard and side yard between the barn and the house. No landscape trees, shrubs, etc. should ever be grown where the roots can interfere with potential septic
Reserve area,
with potential septic leaching fields, and which can, from time to time, be as close as 5 feet from a property line. And again, this is all referenced by the health department. So it just doesn't make any sense to have that kind of landscaping up and around here where it's not even visible to the public, and it completely restricts the intended use of this barn to the point where it's basically impossible to do it. There's only going to be traffic in and out of this barn a few times a year. I mean, anyway, that's basically all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Harry.
Just a couple of quick additional things. Just want to note for the record that the application, since it's an accessory structure to a residential dwelling, is exempt from coastal site plan. That's why there isn't a coastal site plan with this.
Say it again, Harry, I didn't hear you.
This application is exempt for the coastal site plan requirements because it's an accessory structure to residential dwelling. Just want to note that for the record. You're in the coastal management district, but you weren't asked to file a coastal site plan application because of the exemption.
Right.
Well, no, it goes pretty far back from the shore and all the tidal waters, so you're definitely well within it, but you're exempt, so just noting that for the record. Just also on the plan itself, there are 3 parking spaces identified off of 3 Elms Road that are listed on the plan as conforming. They in fact are now non-conforming. They're pre-existing, so they're grandfathered, but it should be noted in the plan that they're not conforming.
What's that? Most of the houses on the street?
It's these 3. These 3 spaces right here that are basically pulled in and out of 3 Elms Road. There's a little note, so there are 3 existing, so they're to be relabeled.
Okay, thank you.
Also, just so I understand clearly, looking at the elevations, the east elevation, now the left elevation, I think it's labeled in the bottom right, on the left-hand.
This
No.
is the south
Over
elevation.
here on the drawing on the left, Peter, on the left side.
Barn drawing?
So your elevations, that elevation down there at the bottom, that would face north towards 3 Elms Road?
This would face toward 3 Elms Road.
Okay. So I just
No,
want.
excuse me. Yes, this would face toward 3 Elms Road.
Okay. So just to understand, you've got 3 barn doors basically facing into the property towards the
From the front,
residential
yes.
dwelling on that, which would be the west elevation. On the north elevation, or the left elevation, you've got 1 door that's pointed towards 3 Elms Road. And, I mean, you're proposing, I don't know if it's clear on the, it's hard to see from here, and if everybody's looked at it in their plans that they've gotten, but there's a proposed gravel area in between the proposed barn and 3 Elms Road?
Yeah, because
Okay. So that's,
it's pervious, though.
right, I understand that. I'm just trying to make it clear that that's the area that would also be normally required to be landscaped for front yard landscaping and also for potentially part of the plantings around the circumference of the building. So I just want to be clear what you're asking to modify. So there's a landscaping requirement along the rear yard, which is the bottom, the south. You've already got some plantings over on the left-hand side there by your parking lot, way over down to those plants. So the normal requirement would continue plantings similar to those all the way over to the corner of the property, if you will.
All the way over here?
Yeah,
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I understand that. I just want to be clear, so there's that, and then there is a front yard landscape requirement along 3 Elms Road, and you've got some couple plantings, I think, in front of the residential dwelling itself, but there's a informal area that's paved in front of that. And then you've got the driveway with 3 parking spaces, and then you've got this proposed gravel area adjacent to the barn.
It's not clear to me how we're accessing the 3 doors for the boats. how the
I'm not clear on
boats are-
that either. I've seen that the access is proposed to go across the 3 non-conforming parking spaces. Is that,
So that space between the, where it says storage box and the other,
well, it's a driveway where the 3 parking spaces are, right?
is this a driveway?
Yes.
That's a driveway, so you've got 3 parking spaces?
He's got a photograph showing all that.
Is this on too? There's a driveway here, and right here, there's a granite wall. So you'd have to access through this, right,
Yeah.
to get to the
Yeah,
doors.
to be able to get around here.
And you've got a ramp up to one of them.
Be able to pull out.
So they're coming around behind the barn? They're coming along the sedge and around the back?
I'm sorry.
So he wants to go around the back side of the barn as well?
All around, all sides.
He wants to come in and be able to go around the barn?
He wants to access through these doors, and I think
He
you
said he
want
wanted to
to,
go behind the barn.
you want to
Won't be able
put
to
some
access all the
boats?
way around the barn.
So you want boats back here or something?
No, no, I originally did, but I was denied that.
Right.
But here, along the rear property line, up against the 6-foot high fence, they're not even visible for these people, it's as far away from the road as possible. Although I would be able to put it temporarily, put a few back here as long as I'm here over.
But my
again,
understanding
all
is
that
you
landscaping
can't,
would completely confiscate. All that landscaping.
I'm not even worried about the landscape, I'm just trying to understand where there's, pervious gravel versus,
right, so
You know,
my understanding,
reed.
this would be gravel, this is grass.
but it won't stay grass because he's using that to access.
I handed,
What, like-
you have one
Yeah, I
of
have
those?
all that, I'm just trying
Oh,
to
okay.
look at the drawing.
Okay.
Like, I see the slate patio, I see you've got one spot notching into the slate patio. Behind the slate patio on the front of the barn, there's not gonna be grass, even though that's in reserve, that's gonna be gravel or something, because he's
No,
gonna need
this-
to get in and out of the barn with the
No,
vehicles.
this is gonna be long, because I only have to go a couple times a year. There will be, this here, the engineer applied because
The elevation of the
property slopes
finished floor is higher.
A little bit away here. But I'm perfectly willing and desirous of taking whatever soil comes out of the footings for this barn. This is all ledge up here, down here. It's not quite, there'd be some soil. To regrade the site so that it's more level and less likely to divert any water.
Right, but you've got the,
I'm just saying I'm willing to do that. That's not what's shown here.
right, but, I mean, you've got the finished floor of the barn at 14, and you've got to ramp up the right side of the barn, which would hit that right door, and then you've got two doors that are gonna be,
To the left.
too high to access.
No, not necessarily.
If you look at
they
the
all
front
the
elevation,
same.
you've got three doors. That
Well, the
far
reason-
right
I
door.
don't understand the purpose of the
Well,
ramp,
the
I
reason
guess.
this ramp is here, because this property, you can see the, slopes that way. So on the back of the rear of the
Oh, you're saying the
barn, you need that access.
So these two would be at grade, and then it slopes down like that,
Yeah,
and
basically.
you need the ramp to get
And I'm
up to the
perfectly
dirt.
willing to change the grade so that it's more even and less likely to.
Well, right, so I'm
That's
looking at the whole
engineer.
base of the barn as finished floor 14, and then you've got 12 coming midway to the middle of that door. You've got a 2-foot bust. I would just talk to your engineer about that, because I think you're gonna,
Say again? I'm sorry.
so here, see here you say it's 14? And see how you've got 11, 12, 13, so that you can enter this rightmost door? So you're entering that
Yeah.
rightmost door, but you've got two doors on your elevation
Right.
here and here that don't come in at 14. That's a problem.
Well, they'd be.
You're only coming in here. You're not gonna be able to use these two doors because they're 2 feet above. You're at 12 here, so that third door is gonna be roughly 2 feet higher than this 12 contour if your finished floor is at 14.
Oh, well,
So just talk to him about that.
Okay.
Because there's some adjustments that need to happen on
yeah,
this.
yeah, I'm perfectly willing, like I said, I'm willing to regrade this, because I've got, whatever soil comes out of here, I'll use to regrade this, so it's easy access into those doors.
So just to finish up here, normally landscaping required here, here, in front, and 40% of the circumference of the building. So you're not looking to do any of that?
No,
Okay.
for the reasons that it.
No,
Okay, for the reasons that it completely disallows the function of the barn for what its proposed use, and the surrounding area is necessary to be able to access for that. Moreover, it's not even, with a 6-foot high fence along here, it's not even visible for anybody over here. And, I suppose I can add a little bit more over here by the, behind the wall, along the wall here, I could do some things if you'd like. But again, they didn't give me a curb cut here, so I have to be able to access and
Well, that's, I'm trying to figure out how it functions for you. Because it looks like you've got a proposed apron area that runs the whole width of the barn. It's almost as if he's showing the front of the barn with the 3 doors facing 3 elms and the side with the back door on the ramp. That
this
almost,
doesn't face 3 elms, this faces that.
I know, but it's almost as if the engineer had the orientation switched. based on
I
what the
don't know.
grades are showing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you have to do some regrading in front, it seems like, to make it work. Just to get back to landscaping for a second, I mean, the standard is excellence in landscaping design in order to grant a modification. So you may want to point out to the commission how you feel what you got on the plan so far represents excellence in landscaping design, because that's what they have to determine.
They have to determine?
Yeah, they have to make that determination.
For the reasons I've already explained.
No, I'm saying the waiver itself, in order for the commission to grant the waiver, they have to find that the plan constitutes excellence in landscaping design after you get the waiver. So whatever you are gonna plant needs to demonstrate excellence in landscaping design, either the plants you've already got on site or the additional plants you gotta put on that are shown on the plan.
I guess I don't understand, I'm sorry.
You have to sell us on why the existing plantings are sufficient
Excellent.
for the
Yeah, what-
landscaping.
Yeah, why are they excellent?
Yeah.
They're not,
Are they big? Are they mature trees? Are there trees? Are there,
And you doing
like, what landscaping's even there? I'm not sure. I'm clear on that.
What is unique and,
it's basically, over here on this side, it's all completely overgrown. On their side, the fence as well as mine. So, I mean, it's not even gonna be visible to these people. Now, one of the other things, by the way, the reason this is set back so far is to be able to improve the view of the harbor to the neighbor behind us here, who's
Right here.
here, Paul.
Over here. Other side. We moved to see the.
Paul Casella. Because he has absolutely no, I've got photos to prove there's absolutely no visibility through here at all right now, in this house down toward the water. By opening this up, this will increase that. I'll show you the pictures of it if you'd like.
can you use the microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have multiple hands.
It's tricky.
I'm not loud enough.
Well, it's the mic for the TV.
For the TV?
Oh, I see, all right.
The producer yelling at you.
What was I gonna say? This location of the barn, set all the way back to the rear setback line, within a couple of feet of it, is intended to create more visibility for the neighbor behind here toward the harbor. Whereas right now, with all the plantings and the trees and everything along here, there's virtually no view at all through that property. And I'll show you the pictures of it if you'd like. Want to see them?
Yeah, pictures would help me, actually.
Does anyone else, while we're waiting for pictures, anyone else have questions before we open up to the public, or? Harry, did you have anything else you want to mention?
I think that's pretty much it.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is looking up the road toward,
Yes, there's a dumpster on the right. And that's,
this is looking from Casella's house toward the water. All he has is a view over the road. All this in here.
so you taking down that
Yeah.
spruce tree?
Yeah. Actually, the power company wants to take it down also. This is a very recent one. That's a winter show.
Yeah.
See, even in the winter, there's no view towards the harbor.
Right.
When this comes down, they will benefit directly from that. Let's see if this one's here.
Is this tree on your property? Looks like a maple.
Yeah, that's coming down.
That's Japanese maple?
That one's very sick, it's breaking, it's, all kinds of limbs are falling down from that.
So is this your brick wall here?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
That's what this, okay. So that's right here,
Yeah.
looking this way, okay. Do you have anything looking this way into the site?
Into the site?
Yeah, you kind of, like, these are all kind of street views.
Yeah, well, this looks into the site from the street. You already have-
Yeah, you're still from, I wanted to go further up the street a little bit.
Well,
I was trying to do Google Earth and look at the roadway.
There's this picture.
Oh, here we go.
No,
Can I pass these down?
you can pass these down. Sure.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah. Just, any further questions before we open up to the public, or John?
Peter, are you doing any planting at all? Are you proposing any planting at all?
In the back?
Well, no, not up here, but,
Yeah, what about along the granite wall? Up
yeah.
at 3 Elms?
Yeah, I could do some along the granite wall, but not real thick, because I need to be able to access alongside of that granite wall with the vehicles, because I don't have a legal curb cut over here, even though I'll jump it if I have to, a couple times a year, but, if it was appropriate and necessary, I can see it, but any of that will seriously, disable the ability to use the barn for its proposed use, is my point.
I get that.
I guess I don't get it, though. I mean, I don't understand the side, there's a store on the side, but you have 3 large doors facing out towards the residential dwelling. Why you need to get behind the barn, because there's no doors back there,
I need to be able to get around it.
because why?
Well, just to perhaps get around it and be able to back in here,
Back in where?
to be able to back in this door here, and also to
How's that gonna
be able to have a boat or two here behind the barn so that it's hidden from the street. And also, so I need to be able to get in there and be able to drive out.
I
So
still
if
don't
I
understand
was to
how.
store a few boats here and then be able to pull out,
I don't understand why having landscaping along that property line would
Which one?
interfere with,
this one,
yeah, not, well, that, but the other side, that side,
this side here,
yeah. And along,
again, for maneuverability.
I mean, do you
be
need
able to
4 doors access to get things in and out of the barn if you've got 3 large doors to cover most of the frontage in the front of the barn? I guess I still don't understand.
I know, but I simply need to be able to get around it. That's my point.
That I don't get, but anyway.
Anyway.
I'm having a hard
I'm
time
trying.
differentiating between the circulation areas for vehicles and the grass areas, or I realize you may on occasion go over the grass, but this doesn't give me any level of confidence of how the property's used, because I don't see where existing trees are, I don't, things
Yeah.
aren't named, it's kind of trying to put everything on one plan, and this is a pretty complicated site. I'd like to see sort of a traffic, a grading, a landscape, almost 3 would help me
Yeah,
be able
organize
to
it.
understand how the property is being proposed to be used. I'm not confident that, the barn's beautiful, but I'm not confident on how the circulation around the barn is working to the scale.
That circulation that you're suggesting,
I understand that you want to do it, I look at a lot of site plans, and there's just a lot of, the hatchings aren't telling me whether that's meant to be paved or pervious. You've got hatchings on that little ramp, is that gonna be a paved ramp into that one barn door, and then grass? So.
I acknowledge that you need a changed site plan here.
Yeah.
I've talked to Rich about that, but once
Okay.
we agree on this stuff, then I can make the changes
No,
accordingly.
right.
Anything else right now? Why don't we open up the public, get some public comment? If you want to come forward, grab a microphone, or you can speak either at the podium, or you can grab a microphone and speak in front of us.
I think they went that way.
I'm David Diakshi, I'm the owner of 403 Elms Road, directly across from Peter. Sir, we can't have
I'm sorry, can you speak a little, I'm sorry, you didn't catch your name?
David Diakshi.
Is that even on?
It
Sounds like it's off.
Tap it.
Tap it at the top, please.
Use this one.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. My name is David Diatri. I'm the owner of 4-3 Elms Road, directly across from Peter. So I have full view of the entire streetscape. Peter approached me 3 years ago about this outbuilding because I had concerns also about the boat storage and things on his site. I think he's done a remarkable job in trying to accommodate all of us by trying to get some of the site cleaned up in terms of boats and other equipment. The building is really beautiful, as Architectural Review noted. If there were no planting at all across 3 Elms Road, across where that stone wall is, I'd be delighted because I'm looking at a very pretty barn now, as opposed to a lot of boats. I'm not sure how much we need to shelter his property from public view. It should be a very attractive property now. So I would just like to say that certainly I'm in favor of the structure. If there's some details on plantings to the rear of the barn that have to be worked out, I'd encourage you to do that with him, because frankly, I'd like to see the building up. It'll be an asset to me, and it'll clean up the whole site. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I have a couple of questions. So Pete, hi. Can you just clarify, so what is the plan here? You want to be able to, where'd you go? Loop around here?
Could you
and then-
identify yourself for the record? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Paul Casella. I own the abutting property just up the hill here. So, if you can just explain what is the surface of this going to be?
This is just all, I'm looking for it to be all lawn, nice mowed lawn. So these people have a backyard and side yard that's usable, and I can access and maneuver whatever trailers, vehicles, boats in and out of these doors and be able to get around the building and out. You can't just keep jockeying back and forth with trailers in here. You just don't have the room. So.
Okay, and so you were asking for a variance to not do landscaping along the back side of the barn, so you can drive a vehicle there, essentially?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. But not store anything back here, right?
No.
Okay.
And in fact, I'm even willing to put a nice 6-foot fence back there if you want it, whatever you want. But you got a nice looking barn to look at, and I can put a couple of windows in it if you'd like. Here, that's the back of it.
Yeah.
But this barn is going to enhance the value of your property and everybody else's property. This is a seriously beautiful, authentic.
Oh, right, okay. Can you also clarify, how far is that 10 and a half feet?
Whoa.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
That's 10 and a half feet there, I think.
10 and a half feet from the property line.
Yeah, and then this is much more than that, because it's probably only 15 feet or so.
Right. Yeah, it looks like,
But this barn's all within the proposed setbacks.
right.
Art?
Thanks, Pete. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Barbara Chesler, and I'm here representing myself and my partner, Karen Dahl. We live at 8 Elms Road. It's the property catty corner to Mr. Custer's property. And we were the women who met with Rich a couple weeks ago and with Mr. Custer at Rich's request. Just so everybody's aware of the history a little bit here, for nearly 3 to 5 years, we've been asking Mr. Custer to move the dumpster and to adhere to the required setbacks and landscaping set by the Branford zoning, and I don't know who sets these rules, but whoever sets those rules. And that hasn't been done. And it continues to have not been done. And this last year, as Mr. Custer explained, there was a suit pending, and so he was, I don't know if he was held up, he was told, he claims he was told that he could not do any of the work. So we told Mr. Custer, I just want to verify that we told Mr. Custer and Rich at the meeting we had last week or 2 weeks ago, that we would support the building of the barn if he so chooses, though it would be very sad to see two beautiful, they have to be at least 40-foot pine trees and a beautiful small red Japanese maple taken down. But it's his property. I guess he's allowed to do that. But our only stipulation is that all the work required by the Zoning Board of Appeals has to be completed prior to any new construction being started on this barn. That's our one and only request, with the operative word prior. We really feel it's important that all that he was asked to do by the Zoning Board of Appeals, which has now been nearly almost, I think, 1.5 to 2 years. I'm not quite sure the dates, so I don't want to be quoted on that, but it's well over a year. It's well over 15 months, need to be done before, we're asking that it be done before you provide any approval, building permit approval, not certificate of occupancy, but building permit. So, and then we just had one question, and that was how long does he have to get the barn built? And once given a permit, I don't know if there's any stipulations to that, but we don't want to see a construction site for the rest of our time there. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Any other members of the public? Yes, sir.
My name is, excuse me, my name is David Cornell. I live at 26 Prospect Hill Road in Stony Creek. I'm familiar with the property. I drive by it a dozen or so times a day. I'm also familiar a little bit with the area, although I don't have much call to go up 3 Elms Road. I am familiar in general with the project. I've discussed it briefly with Peter. I've taken a brief look at his plans. I think I'm speaking as a Creeker, somebody who is part of a community that I love. It's active, it's involved, it's creative, and Peter has, in his own way, a lot of contribution to that with his boats and his the cafe and the apartment units, etc. And he does have a hardship, I think, in terms of finding storage that isn't subject to being flooded. And I think that really warrants some extra consideration. He's been a pillar of the community for a long time. Very interesting guy. And Stony Creek has a lot of interesting things going on, including a public beach, which if you go faster than 15 miles an hour driving past the public beach in the summer, you're speeding. But I love it. There is an occasional visual perquisite from driving by in July. But I do support this in general, with all due respect to the abutters and the neighbors, who I hope can work things out among themselves. But as a member of the public in Stony Creek, I support this project in general. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to comment? Okay, I don't see any. Yes, yes, sir.
First of all, I forgot to mention that he's a very accomplished architect. But one other thing I forgot to mention is I understand you've received a, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, just put it close to your mouse, though, so make sure we get on the...
I understand you received a letter from the attorney for Sam Morris, who owns the property back here on the other side of the fence. Okay?
No.
He's asking you to
provide landscaping set forth in this so-called agreement between us. And I'm telling you flat out that that agreement, I'm asking you to totally ignore it and his attorney's demands and alleged requirements set forth in the so-called written agreement, which is totally null and void and invalid for several reasons, and was even breached by the attorney. I'm perfectly willing to prove it to you if necessary. For whatever it's worth, the ZBA has already ruled out this agreement in their decision-making. And if you like, I can prove it to you.
Okay. Rich, have we even received this letter?
Apparently it was not copied, so it's from October 17th, so I don't know. It's from Timothy Lee, Esquire, Pisano, Ippolito, Lee, and Florentine, and attached is the agreement with some initials. Is this all there was, Rich?
Yeah.
I can read the letter then.
It's short?
It's a short letter that frames the agreement. We represent Sam Morris, who's the owner of the property at 214 Thimble Island Road. Mr. Morris's property abuts the Custer property. During the process before the Zoning Board of Appeals, Mr. Custer and Mr. Morris entered into a written agreement whereby Mr. Custer promised to include improvements and plantings on his property in order to induce Mr. Morris to support the variance application. I'm attaching a copy of the signed agreement. We request that compliance with the agreement be made a condition of any zoning approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Thank you very much for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, Timothy J. Lee, Esquire.
Let me just comment. He has been completely comfortable with the location of the parking lot, the dumpster, and everything else until he decided to hold me ransom for these proposed plantings along the border. This agreement is totally invalid, and I'll tell you why. First of all, it refers to a revised map of the proposed plantings, which is never included in the agreement. Therefore, it's incomplete. Therefore, it is invalid. It's also invalid because it required certain things that the town would not allow. He was insisting that the parking lot not be increased at all, but the town insisted that it be increased in order to meet the parking lot, parking space requirements, which I did. Moreover, in that agreement, it was submitted to me literally within 5 minutes before the zoning meeting, where I had no chance to really edit it, and I was told point blank, you sign it, we'll approve you. If you don't sign it, we won't. Had nothing to do with the logic or anything associated with it. And just so you know, this guy I did him so many favors. I allowed him to, when he did all his renovations there, he took out permits for $20,000 worth of work, which was supposed to be windows and door trim and siding. He also did a roof, he added a bedroom, he added a deck, and added a heating system with no permits whatsoever, no zoning permit, no health department permit, no public, no building permit, no nothing. So I'm just telling you.
I appreciate all that. However, the way I would take it is basically testimony that that's what he would like.
I understand.
Happen. I mean, I don't know the binding nature of it or not, but.
I'm just telling you that agreement is completely null and void.
Well, I understand that, but he is saying this is what the agreement contains, changes to the site plan that he would like to see.
He's been holding me ransom for this, to spend lots of money, because he even wanted me to grant him 3 feet of my property.
Okay. I just took a quick look at it, and the only thing I was caring about was landscaping, because that's the issue with the regulations. And it sounds like there was part of that agreement called for landscaping in the area that the regulations may also be calling for landscaping.
Yeah, but that
correct?
But that agreement does not exist.
I know, but that essentially he's saying.
That's what he wants to say.
He's saying that he wants you to comply with the regulations. That's one way of saying it.
Well, let me just tell you this. He's cheated me and the town.
Okay.
He did a $20,000 permit for the work, did $160,000 worth of work. And I hooked him up with a contractor, and you can ask this contractor, he insists that he got stiffed by $46,000 by this guy.
Okay. What's your understanding as to what landscaping he wanted?
Okay, well, I just want to point out the fact that his
fence is on my property, this gate is on my property.
Okay.
Pool filter's on my property.
C-214,
Yeah.
this is his house right here.
I'll let you go, but I just want you to know that any.
Is this his house?
Excuse me?
Is this Sam Morris's house?
With the pool, yeah.
This is where your barn's going? This is, this is the house?
Yep.
This is the line? Okay.
Yep, yeah, the bedroom, none of those.
Okay. So, all right, so he's your butter. And he goes back to there.
Gotcha. Anyway, sorry to bend your ears all
That's
over.
okay. It's a complicated little
4
thing.
years worth.
So is that right?
It's his house.
Can I ask for clarification on 2 points?
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, should I take the mic again?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
Okay, Pete, again, I'm Paul Casella, the
This is his house.
neighbor up the street. Can you confirm this 10.5-foot set, I mean, the building is not overlapping any kind of setback? It
Yeah,
is?
it's shown.
The engineer, town engineer draw that.
Okay.
That's done, Crisco engineer.
And can you also clarify why the dumpster issue can't be addressed now? I mean, you mentioned it earlier, but I'm not quite, okay, what are we looking at?
This is you.
Yeah,
Here's 3 Elms Road. Thimble Elms Road. Here's the house.
yeah.
Here's the driveway. Here's the terrace. And there's the proposed.
Okay, and the
all within
pink is the setback. Okay. And then can you speak to, you mentioned it before, why the dumpster issue hasn't been addressed. Can you clarify that point?
Yeah. I attempted to do all that work, but I was told, I already mentioned this, I was told by, I called Jennifer Aquino to say, I'm about to get started on this. I'm a little late in getting started because it was hard to get a contractor lined up. At which point she says, oh, you can't do this at all. And I said, what do you mean I can't do this? Well, as long as you're on appeal, you can't do it. In fact, we can't even talk. If you want to talk, you have to talk to your attorney, or has to talk to the town attorney. I said, you're the zoning person, I'm simply asking a question. Anyway, the long and the short of it is, I was perfectly willing to do it a long time ago, but wasn't able to because I was told I couldn't. Simple as that.
Okay. I understand. Okay, do you have anything else to add at this time?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, I don't want to close the public hearing this second because I want to talk among ourselves a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, certainly. And I want to close it because we may have some more questions, right? Depending how everyone feels. I'm looking at this as it's a special permit. He complies with the regulations, except for the landscaping.
Right.
And the neighbors are generally supportive. It's a nice building. There's some questions, Marcy raised some good questions about the grade and whatever, which suggests that it may be more. But I mean, the variances, I don't, whatever. The issue I have is the landscaping, because it's our regulations say it. And there's an out, but we have to show excellence in landscaping design. And I don't know what it is. And I don't know, and the neighbor, you know, he's in a butter, he may be blackmailing, whatever. He asked for landscaping on his property, you know, which seems to be similar to what our regulations require. So that's the issue that I see here, frankly, because I agree. What the neighbors said about make them do all the stuff before they get a building permit, fine. Yeah, we'll do that. I mean, I agree with that. You know, that's easy. The harder question in my mind is what do we do about our landscaping? Is there any way can we waive it, or we have to make a certain finding? And then what do we do with it? So what do people think, you know?
I'm less concerned with the quantity of trees as opposed to the quality of the plan.
Okay.
So I'm not confident that the lovely architecture has been communicated in the right orientation on the drawing. I'm not clear because of some of the hatchings where grass is located, where circulation is happening. He's trying to fit everything on one plan. I'd really like to see a comprehensive landscape plan because, you know, he's got a lot of uses here, and granted, it's not a business use and it's all private, but, you know, God forbid one day when you're not here and there's all this, you know, compacted, you know, ground and whatnot, I just think we need to have clearly demarcated edges and a clear drawing of what the intent was of where circulation is happening, where the grade needs to be, where the planting, where the screening to the neighbor happens, what the height of the building is relative to the neighbor and back, so we can know what the view sheds are doing and vice versa. You know, it is a shame to take down 2 very large spruce trees, but they're very large and they're gonna get weaker over time, and, you know, with the development in the area, they could fall on any of the buildings in the area. So, you know, there is a natural sort of re-landscaping that has to happen. You know, this might be pushing it ahead of schedule, but there's a natural sort of growth and life of a tree that's gonna happen. But that's my concern. So it's not that it needs to be X number of plants, but just more suitable screening for the neighbors, suitable sight lines protected, you know, clear circulation. That's what I would be looking for.
When you say clear there's the landscape
So
thing, I understand that. There's
this looks
circulation.
like it's a gravel surface. This looks like it's a gravel surface. This looks like it's a gravel surface. You know, this is gravel, but they're extending the parking. Is that going to become gravel? So he sort of overlapped an existing plan with where, so it's just the
Just for the
drawing-
record, you're talking about basically all around the building, the perimeter of the building looks like it's almost all gravel except in front where the doors.
It's just, there's a layout plan on a grading plan on a landscape plan, and in this case, it would be really helpful to split it out, render grass, render gray, and put some, trees on there, and it would be much clearer how much landscaping is going on. You know, I know you don't want to spend a ton of money to hire a lot of professionals, but
Eversource wants those trees down.
yeah, and it's not that I'm opposed to taking the trees down, I just want to have a better understanding of where the landscaping needs to happen. I mean, what happens even with these trees that are shown, those circles are going to grow much bigger than are represented on this drawing. Even here, the proposed ones are going to grow much bigger. So I want you to have a clear plan of where your landscape's going to grow into as well, so.
So it sounds like a lot of additional information to me, and I understand what you're saying.
You need a landscape architect to draw
A real
proper
landscaping
planting
plan, right.
That would help.
At this point, you closed the public hearing, right? I'm sorry.
No, we haven't
Oh, you
closed
haven't
the
closed it,
public
right.
We have not closed the public
That's what
hearing.
I would
That
like
was
to see.
why I want to have this discussion
Yeah,
before we
okay.
close the public hearing.
Yeah.
Well, any other thoughts, Wayne?
This is not a commercial site.
Correct.
I'm.
Correct.
I don't need a big,
I know.
plan to show pedestrian access and vehicle access and that. And we have some plantings that we approved in the last site plan that he hasn't done yet. I kind of understand him wanting to be able to get around the barn and to eliminate landscaping there. I can see that. If I had a barn like that, I'd want to get around it too.
What do you get around it with? You drive it, a vehicle?
You just want to be able, yeah.
You just don't want evergreens growing up against the building.
On the property.
Yeah, I can see that.
And you're going to want to get behind the barn, and if it's landscaped, I mean, if it was necessary for a neighbor or something, then I could see it, but if it's just there for no reason, I don't see a reason why not to allow that. I don't know, I would prefer to see a plan too that just kind of showed, and I think you could add something along that wall on 3 Elms. But, it's Stony Creek. I don't think you want a manicured property.
I'm not
You know?
proposing, like the hatch in front of the barn on 3 Elms, is that
Yeah.
storage area for a boat, or is that
Yeah,
access
I know the
from?
plan, right.
It's hard for me to tell, because there's a curb on 3 Elms Road, but, I mean, just a little bit of color would
I
really
know.
tell the better
I know.
story.
Excuse me, I forgot to mention, all along the inside of that stone wall is pure ledge. There's no soil there.
Oh,
Right, so,
there you go.
so that's probably controlling the level that you're putting the barn at, right?
Yeah.
With the barn being 10.5 feet from your property line, there's not much room for landscaping there. I mean, even if you put a small shrubbery there, it's gonna grow into the building, or you're gonna be finding a time when you're not gonna be able to, it's gonna be, I think, a hardship more than an advantage, put something there.
I wish he had applied for a variance of the landscape.
No, yeah, right.
Then we wouldn't have to deal with it.
10 feet. If he had 20-plus feet, okay, you could put a 2-foot strip, 3-foot strip of a small landscape. But at least in that area, 10 and a half feet, I think, just gravel and lawn, whatever, something, just
Okay.
maintain it that way. Where there's maybe some wider areas, from maybe down on the bottom here, where that neighbor's making some kind of a complaint of some kind.
Yeah.
Maybe something
Okay.
in a small scale, really a small scale, a small property with small areas. I really don't want to see anything of any.
Yeah, I don't think we need to throw a million shrubs at this. I think we
Or
just
something
need
that's going to get big.
a plan
in
that
time.
shows, you know,
They all
that
look good
addresses
when
the
they're
concerns.
planted, but then 5 years later, it gets overgrown if you don't maintain it properly.
Okay. Okay, so we're talking about additional landscaping on the, what is that, west eastern? I don't know what it is, the bottom over there, but not between the barn and the setback.
Yeah, down there in that area, I think that's the neighbors that.
Well, that's
wrote
where
that
where his
letter.
hand is where the storage is gonna be too.
Now where? This guy wanted arborvitae's along the wall. This, like I said, there's this fence here and the boats are legally located here. That would eliminate that possibility, and maybe, not to mention the fact that wouldn't be able to, again, maneuver.
I mean, I think it's a good place to do a fence and just a single row of columnar arborvitae's that aren't gonna take, but that's not shown here, you know, so I would wanna see a final plan. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, like, I don't think it's a ton more planting, I think it's just selecting a few correct key plantings to, you know, to accentuate the road where you can, to keep the lot looking neat, to help direct traffic, you know, I don't think you need a million boulders to define the edgeness, you know, like, that's where I would, you know, recommend, you know, the landscape plan.
Peter, the maximum amount of boats that you're storing in trailers are 8?
Yes,
What I remember.
Excuse me, can you use the mic? Peter, I'm sorry, can you use the microphone? I'm getting Henry staring at me again.
I'm sorry. Your question is how many?
The storage would be at the bottom part of the barn, where I would say toward the floor here, yeah.
Well, yeah, a couple could go in here, but they're currently in here, all along here.
All right, all along that area.
Yeah, above, from here up. Here's the terrace on the house. So basically from here up.
And what's there now, on the line, on the property line, as far as landscape?
6-foot high fence,
What is it?
6-foot high fence, and some scrub trees that he's got in his yard, and I got on my yard, but there's.
So why would he want arborvitae there if the fence is there? You know what I mean? I'm
He
just
says
saying,
he
yeah.
wants his privacy from the barn.
But he
where
got the
nobody
fence.
lives. How you have, he's surrounded on 3 sides by, he's got a tiny lot surrounded on 3 sides by other houses. He's less than 20 feet from the road, and he's hung up on privacy from a barn where nobody lives.
So just do the arborvitae, because it'll grow higher than 6 feet. You know what I mean? Just do a single row of the columnar arborvitae's that are tight, will give them a nice tight high barrier. I just don't know who that obstructs, you know, beyond that. That would be my concern.
But if there's a fence there, and putting arborvitae in front of the fence, if it's a stockade type of fence.
It's redundant, is what you're saying.
Yeah, what are you trying to prove?
Don't put him on his property.
There's no love lost there, I hear you.
Stop to do that.
Okay, so here's our options. The options are, we close the public hearing and we put conditions of what we come up with. Another option is we keep it open and we get some more landscaping, an additional plan that at least stresses some additional landscaping before we go, and whatever else.
Yeah, I'm not even saying additional, it just defines it better, about what's really proposed, you know.
Well, I mean, what's proposed is right here. I mean, that's,
It's not specified.
it's not, it's just little,
Compact Japanese, I mean, that's,
is that
it
excellent?
should be, no. I mean, that, to me, that's all there's, the blue rugs are very low, so there's one tree. And I don't know what this existing tree is, it's just labeled existing tree. And then it's very difficult to determine what's happening all along this edge. I mean, obviously, there's some overhead lines, so you've got to be careful of that. And there's some wall that you know, but without understanding where the circulation is, you know, to me, this reads like that's storage for a boat here. But you know, what's happening in here? This reads as a parking on the other side of this wall.
Is that connected with the landscaping, or are you just wondering what it means?
It all works together for me. It's, you know, I can't look at this plan and see, you know, and then I see the grading issue, so I'm trying to differentiate I mean, it's.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Yeah, it's still.
Sure, go ahead. What do you want?
I'm just curious.
You gotta use a mic, though, because Henry will yell.
Barbara Chesler again. Just curious that once the barn is built, is it still a limit of 8 boats and trailers inside and outside the barn? Or is it still 8 boats and trailers outside the barn and as many, I say you can fit inside? Because I don't, Pete, how many actual boats can you get in this barn?
It's not necessarily permanent storage for the barns. I have collected boats which are already in here for the winter, but I'm allowed 8 outdoor storage boats. As a practical matter, it's not going to be that easy very often.
Okay, so 8 boats and/or trailers outside.
Some of which will be hidden by the barn, if not in the barn.
I'm kind of running out of space here, I guess is my question.
So show us a boat parking plan, you know, I mean, that would help. So, you know, boats, cars, show us a boat parking plan where you're fitting, like, what are the size of the boats, what are the size of the spaces?
Yes, do that.
And then can you fit a small buffer on the edge, you know, what's
Yeah,
reasonable?
there's a whole lot going on here. There's been a whole lot going on in the property for a long time, and this is an opportunity to define what happens where, so it's clear for everyone.
Okay.
What's going forward. I mean,
Okay.
Can we approve it with the condition that he supply us with such mapping to the satisfaction of staff?
if you want to do that, I think I would suggest that we as staff come back at the next meeting, because even though we've got conditions drafted, it sounds like where you're going is different than the direction Rich had to lay it out, because he laid it out, this is what you need to do to comply with the regulations. If you're going to grant a significant landscaping modification and address some of the comments, the concerns that Marcy's expressed about what is going to happen and where on this property, we'd have to write up a really detailed condition to make sure it's clear that what you're asking for is clear.
What ideally, I'd continue the public hearing, say, go talk to Criscola, show where the boats are going to be parked and put it on the plan, show where the additional landscaping is going to be, ask them to make sure you don't have to do additional grading because whatever, so you have to spend some money. I mean, that's about,
fine.
yeah, that's what I would do.
That's fine.
Why don't we do that?
This is why I want to go over this stuff with you.
Okay.
Because if that's where the boats are, that's where I'm perfectly willing to regrade, make it more level.
Yeah, so let's find that out. Let's find out where we're going to store the boats, and then get the additional landscaping or something, so that you can give us, you can point to as to why we can waive our landscaping requirements.
I'm seeking the waiving of additional.
I know, you got to show excellence in landscaping design.
But
You have to show excellence in landscaping design, that's the criteria. You got to show why those trees up there are excellent and they justify not doing all the other stuff. You got to come up with something.
I'd like to see on the plan where those spruces are and where that maple is relative to the barn, like the spruces aren't, I know, but they're not shown on the plan, so.
Yeah, they need to be on a plan indicating
But
to be
that's why it's
removed.
confusing, you know.
You should show them on the plan and note in the plan to be removed.
Yeah, so you draw a circle, you put a dash line, you say spruce to be removed, and I can see how big it is and whether it's, you know, or if there's ledge, where that ledge starts, you know. Because exposed ledge is, to me, a beautiful landscape element, you know. You know, I'm not saying cover it with soil and put, you know, a tree there.
Okay.
It should maybe be helpful to have Jim Preddy engage him and ask him to come to the next meeting if he's going to be
Right.
engaged in preparing a plan as well. Jim Preddy
The
from
guy who did
Criscola.
this, yeah, from Criscola. Get him to come, yeah, I think that would
Revise
be
the plan and
helpful.
present it.
Does that, okay. Is that okay with everyone?
That's fine.
Okay, so we're going to continue this and talk to Jim Preddy, and he can, ask him to call Harry too, and he can help summarize, and then we'll, okay.
I'll tell them what you want.
Thank
Great.
you.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's great.
I'm not trying to,
Is the next meeting the next meeting, or is the next meeting
Yeah.
Well, it would depend. I think we could continue the hearing to the 21st, and we'll find out from Mr. Preddy how fast he could do something, because he may not be able to just turn it around in 3 days. He's a pretty busy guy, so we'll see
Yeah.
how it's going to work out.
So right now, it's on for the 21st, but we may continue it further if
21st of
people.
November?
Correct.
Yep.
If people need more time, then it may go, the next one is the 5th after that.
Yeah, if it's not going to be held on the 21st, we'll try and notify the neighbors so you don't come out for no reason.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, so this public hearing is continued to our November 21, November, is that it? Yeah, 21 meeting. That brings us to item number 4, which is the special exception installation of parking lot for Branford. And I understand that's still at Wetlands? Is that correct, or?
Yes.
Okay.
They will be probably rendering a decision on the 14th.
Okay. So we can just continue this one to our next meeting as well, to
Yes.
November
Yes.
21? Okay. So on item number 4, we're going to continue that public hearing to our meeting on November 21. Which brings us to minutes. Minutes of 10:17, I believe they were circulated. And had a chance to review, and if so, someone want to make a motion? Move to accept by Joe. Is your second?
Second.
Second by John. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, minutes are approved. Any correspondence?
Yes, there are a couple items. There are 4 items having to do with 2 different properties that propose to have modifications to some of the telecommunications equipment on them. One is at 405 Birchy Plain Road, and the other one is at 123 Pine Orchard. Looks like the siting council is looking for additional information for the one on 123 Pine Orchard. Also, we're notified that the town has received approval for the renewal of its domestic wastewater treatment discharge or NPDS permit for the sewage treatment plant. That's it.
Okay, great. Do you want to bring up items number 1 and 2 of the public hearing, the Shapiro? Talk about that a little bit? Okay. Start, Joe? You got some,
Well,
what do you think?
first of all, I don't think what they're doing has anything to do with other exits, areas. It's not the same situation. This is a situation that you're trying to get something built there that you're downsizing the area so you can, because of the traffic, low traffic generators, because of the improvements needed on Route 1, whatever, it just makes it too expensive for anybody to want to go in there. So what they're proposing, I think, is reasonable.
Okay. Yeah.
Beside the fact that years ago, when this thing, that was all fully developed with JM Fields and the bowling alley and all that thing was all the way down to where Cherry Hill construction was down on the other end. There was a lot of activity there already, so now it's all vacant.
Right.
So just revitalizing a situation that was already developed at one time.
It's a redevelopment, okay, yeah.
I
John?
kind of agree with that. I think it's a good use for the area. I'm wondering, and Harry, you could probably explain it to me, why a PDD wouldn't be appropriate for this rather than creating a hybrid zone?
PDD is possible. One of the requirements in PDD is demonstrate that no other zone could be used to accomplish the same objective. I mean, there really is no other zone at the moment. but the Plan of Conservation Development does recommend the establishment of a hybrid zone for exactly what they want to do around 53, 54, and 55, those three exits on 95. So, I mean, there is that. I mean, they looked at a couple different other options which weren't PDDs. I think it also is, go through the whole process of establishing PDD and having a master plan developed. I don't know if that's anything, we didn't have an extensive discussion whether that's anything the applicant either wanted to entertain. This is a lot more work and expense in putting that together when there was this route which was laid out in the Plan of Conservation Development as a way to go.
My guess, normally you have a PDD, you have something specific that you want to build.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah,
we have
that's
the
true.
layout.
That's true.
And this is, I think they want this to help market it. They don't know what's going to be there.
They don't know.
And they just want to open up
Yeah.
less traffic
agree. Yeah.
fences. Uses.
They're looking
Well,
to
I-
help
I-
develop this property.
I like that it's a modest traffic generator, and I
Yeah.
think that that's a primary concern down there.
Right, and I think, Harry, you're right, it was just rezoned to IG2, would allow contractors' yards or some other.
Yes, I don't think we want IG2.
Right. There's a lot of uses that may not be appropriate. That was my take on it when we discussed it.
Yeah, well, I agree. I agree that this exit is different than the other exits. This exit is zoned for retail essentially right now. It's BL.
Yeah.
And at least 56, that is not zoned BL. So, and if you made that a hybrid, you would be adding a higher traffic generating use to that one, to what is there now. And this one, they want to add a less traffic generating use by allowing the light industrial uses. So
The other why is it higher? Why would it be higher?
why would what be higher?
You said if you did it up
At the other one, it's
Why would
zoned
that be?
industrial right now, right?
So why would-
And
I
if
mean-
you add, and you change it to this, you would be
If
allowing.
you added the IG to a BL hybrid up there, is that what you're saying?
Correct,
Okay.
correct, yeah.
It would be increasing, okay.
It would
Why
be
are the other
increasing.
exits in play in terms of this application?
They're-
I think we should just deal with this application.
I agree. I think,
I think that only came in because, the
Well, no, the lawyer did,
POCD
but-
came up and then.
Well,
then
that's what I'm
it's,
saying. Now we
you know,
have a chance to comment. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I dismissed the other considerations. Just deal with this application as in front of us.
Right, and someone from F56 or 55 can propose
Absolutely.
something as well. Yeah, and this, I thought they made a good point too. It's a dead-end street. It's not right off the exit either. I mean, you got to go up, make your way past a few properties, and then you're there. I mean, it's not really quite the gateway area.
Just a question. There were several things brought up, I think, in the letter from Attorney Mingione. Do you want to take or have the town attorney look at any of that before you get some input or not?
I don't think it's a spot zone.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think it's a spot zone because it's a fairly large area.
Yeah.
It's, how many acres was it?
About 30.
30, it's a number of parcels over 30 acres. We've got a lot of zones that are a lot smaller than that. I mean,
It really wasn't a terrifically persuasive letter in the way it cited things and the way it slipped into hyperbole on numeric values. So it had a different motivation. And the extent to which this is, if their traffic generation numbers are believable, this will be a small traffic generator. And tractor-trailer drivers historically do not like to drive during rush hour. So it's not going to be a burden to that extent. They work very hard to make off-hour deliveries. So, yeah, except the only thing that sort of sticks in my head as a question is why didn't we just make a modification for this zone as opposed to create a zone?
Or just add these uses to the BL zone?
Yeah.
As a whole?
Yeah.
They did propose that at one point, withdrew that earlier in the year, and the problem was that affected the whole BL zone all the way along Route 1. So the thinking of the hybrid zone was just to allow that at the highway interchanges adjacent to that. So that was what the plan recommended, and was to provide a little more flexibility. And the original thought was provide more flexibility and also provide more additional requirements for appearance and aesthetics and have some design review. And then looking at this as what is now called the hybrid rear, was that this was remote from Route 1 and really a lot of visibility in terms of people coming in. They're going to come down the ramp. They're not going to see this. So it doesn't need the extensive, or more extensive requirements for appearance, upgraded appearance, and so forth.
It addresses the peculiarities of the site, as opposed to some tendencies in zoning to try to homogenize an awful lot of areas.
Yeah.
So to that extent, it is a good thing.
Yeah.
I think to that extent, that's how I feel about all the interchanges, that they're all unique and they all need to be considered uniquely.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure that this application creates a precedence for the others if we look at each intersection as its own entity. I was very strong on the POCD about making each intersection a node, and I think this starts to represent that. I think there's a concern in town about the size of buildings and the way the economy's going is with these centers. It's easy to construct a big, huge building. I think the onus on us is to, okay, maybe you need big open space on the interior, but how do you make the exterior a little bit, bite-sized pieces? And if you drive down Orange, you can see shopping centers that, it's basically a big box, but it looks like 10 different storefronts. So I think there are ways to make it attractive in the zone, and I think we need to be mindful of that. And I like that it's off the beaten track, and I like that it's a, lesser traffic generator. I think those are really important, especially given that we don't know what's going to happen with, the future of the exit, and then that expanding. And, I would just want to see any future plan be able to incorporate growth with the interchange should we get the southbound exit, and that they consider that as far as access, to maybe not have trucks even have to go into Route 1, but to, maybe come directly into that area or something, so.
Great, yeah. Yeah. No,
But for now, not having them during, those hours is good.
right, yeah. And I know, I think there was one, Janet Reisman wrote a letter. And her point is, let's just tweak what we have versus create a whole new zone. I think it's a fair point.
It's a fair point.
But wouldn't, when I think about it, adjusting the BL zone and putting warehousing and the new e-commerce fulfillment center, whatever, I wouldn't necessarily want, I want Route 1, I don't want a warehouse in Route 1.
No.
And that's, it really is kind of a unique area, so I don't want to just tweak it that way. And I think maybe just put off by the word hybrid, it's kind of scary, but because it is very specific. It's not unspecified, the uses are all laid out. So it's not an open-ended thing, so I disagree with that part of the letter. I think, maybe the concern is if you do it here, you're going to do it somewhere else, and you've created a precedent. I don't see that. I think there are real differences between what they did here. They wanted to add a less traffic-generating use to what was there now. So if exit 56 and exit 55 want to add a less traffic-generating use from the way it is now, then okay, then they can point to this as precedent. But
I think for exit 53, the reduced traffic generation is what's appropriate for 53.
Absolutely.
Whether that's appropriate for 54, where you've got 4 exchanges, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but there's some confinements of property around there. Exit 55 is,
Your point is they're all unique, and I agree.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't want to consider that in terms of this application.
Yeah, I don't want to.
That's something else that has to happen.
Yeah, my point is that I don't think this even creates a precedent for allowing the opposite somewhere else, because if anything, it's,
But Harry asked a question about whether we we respond to Mr. Mingione's letter or not, right?
Whether it's about
Well,
zoning.
And
just
we
whether
didn't
you
answer
want-
that.
Yeah, I mean, we could ask our town attorney.
Right.
You want this?
Some-
You want to?
I don't know, I don't think they have no understanding what they're saying, but anyway.
Why don't we just say we noted the letter and make our decision?
This property is unique in two different ways. First of all,
Jeopardizes.
you don't have a southbound off 95, you don't have a northbound entrance to 95. You're eliminating half of the possibility of
Right.
cars getting off the road from 95. And then all the buildings that they're proposing are in the back or off-site, so to speak.
Yeah, they're not.
You know, just like Walmart. You don't know Walmart's there, unless you saw a sign, you couldn't find Walmart, because it's so far in the back, and these basically are just,
Right.
in the same situation where.
Quite a distance from Route 1.
Quite, right, it's
Yeah.
off of Route 1, it's not even, it may not even be visible from Route 1, well, maybe a little bit, but, because it's a little closer, but
Right.
it's not an on-site situation, it's off-site.
Yeah, most of what you see from Route 1 is the commuter lot. You don't see that.
And mostly, there was development there before, and there's nothing there now. And the reason why there's nothing there now, because they're telling the absolute truth, that for anybody to go there, there's gonna, off-road improvements is gonna cost so much that it prevents them from actually doing the project.
Okay.
I think, can I make one last point? I know you're trying to close it. You know, it shouldn't be the applicant's, obligation to write a zone change for the entire town, and put all that on their backs. They propose something that's appropriate for a good, for the interchange area, and it's specific to that. But, to put that responsibility, that's got to be a town project, and to propose that all four be considered, it's really just a delay.
Yeah, that's why I dismiss it.
Right.
That's why, yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like we're in favor of this. Do we want to get a resolution on this?
I can do that, absolutely. And the other question I have for you is, I mentioned whether you want to put something specific about basically authorizing yourself through the special exception process to put any controls on hours of operation if you think that's necessary.
Can we do that when we get the special
I
exception?
think you should wait until you know what's going there.
No, I'm not saying you should do the hours of operation now. I'm just saying you should hold it in the regulation itself. Say the commission may
Reserve the
choose to
right.
limit hours of operation, should come up with some wording or something.
Can we?
Arguably, you have the power now to do
Right,
that as
yeah.
part of the special exception process, but just to be clear.
Right.
That's- But, if we've talked about it, if it's on the record, you could just say at this point,
Yeah, I think we could impose a condition under our.
through a special exception process.
Because
Okay.
it's a special exception, we can do it anyway. We
Okay.
don't need to set
All right.
that language, so.
Yeah, I'm happy to write up a resolution.
Okay, so we'll do it at the next.
Next meeting, okay. If that's what you want, sure.
Okay. Okay, so getting back to our.
So we're tabling the two applications to
Yes,
the
we'll
21st.
table it to our next meeting on the 21st. Old business. Now, number one is Beacon. What's going on with Beacon is that the staff and our town attorney are working on a resolution, a draft resolution consistent with our discussion, but it hasn't been completed yet, and the applicant has granted an extension to our next meeting. So that's where we are. So we'll table that to our next meeting.
Okay, we did get a time extension,
Yeah.
mentioned,
Yeah,
right?
we
In
got-
writing
we
from the
got the time
applicant through
extension.
the 21st.
So, okay, so item number 2, the Bourbon Drive zoning map amendment from R4 to R1. We have a public hearing at our November 21 meeting. Item number 3 and 4 is the Summit Place, the incentive housing overlay map amendment and special exception. That's also on for our November 21 meeting. And item number 5, that's 80 Bradley Street. It looks like a smaller application. Also have a public hearing on the 21st, so we got a lot going on. Item number 6, 7, 8, and 9 are all related.
Yeah, they all related. We had to adjust the applications a little bit, mainly with the applicant. They were not aware that need a special exception for each of the proposed rear lots. So there was one for 3, so now there were 3, one for each individual rear lot proposed. Items 7 and 8 are the 2 new special exception applications for Lot 2 and Lot 3, both of these being rear lots. So you need to set public hearings for 7 and 8. We're suggesting 12/5 to make it the same night as the others. We can
Okay,
make
so
that work.
for 7 and 8, we'll schedule those for public hearing also on 12/5.
Yeah.
So that brings us to item number 10, which is the NOZOs, the non-agricultural farm event, which we have a public hearing also scheduled for December 12/5. Brings us to new business. Item number 1 is a new matter, and, that's the convenience store right by Shelley's.
Right.
Yeah, that's it.
They're back.
They're back.
So,
Yeah,
public
this-
hearing.
Public hearing, I mean, this one and the next one came in on the same date. We're suggesting January 9th, which, once you adopt the new meeting schedule, would be the first meeting of the new year. Typically, that would be the second Thursday. Usually you meet the first and third, but the first is the day after New Year's. So I think we're going to suggest in the schedule that you meet the second Thursday and the fourth Thursday of January instead of the first and third.
Okay.
So assuming it's the second, it can be set for the 9th of January.
Okay, so that one for January 9th, item number 1. Item number 2, zoning regulation amendment for the Thimble Island Brewery so they can make pizza too, I guess?
Basically, so they can heat pizza up in the oven, yeah.
Allowing that as an accessory use.
What they're adding is basically the words you see here: food preparation for on-site consumption with a manufacturing facility that produces food and beverage. It is also sold at retail for on-site consumption, and this would just be in the IG2 zone.
Okay.
So that could be done on the 5th, it could be done in January.
Okay, you want to get it done on the 5th if we can?
Okay.
Is that okay?
Finish up the application?
Yeah.
We want to do it?
The 5th if we can, so we can
Yeah.
get
It's
people
not
in
a big
and out.
controversy item.
What?
I don't think there'd
It's
be.
pizza.
Yeah, it's not a big, no controversy, is it?
Probably not. Right.
Can we ask them to bring samples?
Right. Item number 3 is the Costco property, re-subdivision, 15 lot, Todd's Hill Road.
Yeah, the wetlands is potentially, I understand, set to act on this, but no earlier than the 12th of December, so this would have to go into January, so we'd have a wetlands approval. Also, I believe there are 6 rear lots proposed as part of this, so each of them would need a special exception application.
Okay.
So we will communicate that to the applicant, and
Okay, so that would
hopefully
be
those will be submitted.
recommending January 9th for that one as well.
Yeah.
Okay, and then there was something to add to the agenda, was that?
Yes.
Sycamore?
We have an application for a special exception modification for 8 Sycamore Way. Inadvertently did not get on the agenda. They're also requesting a waiver of the public hearing.
Okay, is there a motion to add this to the agenda? Well, why don't you just tell us what it is? and then we can-
Yeah, they want to drop there was a requirement in the approval of condition that required the pole lights be kept at 16-foot height, and they are requesting to go back up to 20, which was their original proposal.
Okay.
Where's
I
that?
didn't,
Where's this?
I'm sorry?
Sycamore?
What property are we talking?
Sycamore, it's
The new property.
on the east side.
Yeah,
It backs up to property owned by Ms. Reisman, who is actually in the audience, and we did notify her so that if you did choose to waive the public hearing, at least the directing abutting property owner would know about it.
So in other words, it originally was 20, it went down to 16, now
They're required to go down to 16 by the approval, a condition on the approval.
they want to go to 20.
They will go back to 20.
Okay, is there a motion to add it to the agenda?
so moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so now it's added to the agenda.
Okay.
You want to explain again?
Just for the record, explain again, the applicant, through the attorney, Attorney Perito is requesting that condition number 6, thank you, Rich, which requires that the pole height, so the light poles in the parking lot be limited to 16 feet, be modified to allow them to go to 20 feet in height.
Does it reduce the number of poles?
Yes,
By how many?
I don't know.
We weren't,
I don't think we were told that.
They submit a cutoff sheet that there's no light trespass?
We would get that, that's a requirement. So there should be a full, should we get a full
Yeah.
photometric plan with foot candle readings, and there should be 0 at the property line.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, the only problem is you get the LEDs a little sharp, so you might see them, from the running property, but there's gonna be a line of trees, I think, kept in back anyway.
Right.
To some degree.
This was the application where we approved not clearing and not doing some of the parking because they have such a low parking
Yes,
requirement?
we're tremendously reduced the amount of parking. that
And
you
we're
can build.
maintaining extra landscaping
Yes.
to the butters, which,
Right. I
Is
think
that
we were talking
landscaping
about doing the
above?
rough grading, and we decided to not require that, yeah.
is that landscaping above 20 feet, do we know?
I don't know, I would say if it's existing,
Is it mature
chances
trees?
are it's probably 20 feet at least. I mean, it's probably deciduous, so there's the winter effect, but it's pretty standard. I mean, I've been in communities where planning zoning commission is limited to 15 feet typically, but in Branford, 20's been pretty much the standard.
So so 20 foot is the standard in that area?
I think
For other
most of the
zones?
property developments out there are 20 feet, and it's pretty much throughout town for commercial industrial.
And we're just slowly bringing it down for,
Yeah, but it's something to think about, I think, when you probably revisit the site plan standards. I mean, whether you do that, or whether you do like a diffuser on the LEDs to soften it up a little bit. I mean, there's different things can be done. But none of those things are in the regs right now because they're old and they don't address LEDs. To me, that's more crucial and probably impactful than a few feet of height in the pole, really.
Ms. Friesman, you're a butter. Do you have any comments on this?
I just would like not to see a lot of bright light filtering into my house.
Sure.
Short distances. I don't, do you think reducing the number of poles and adding height to that?
Correct. Right.
Are you going to have a public hearing, or are you just going to?
Well, this is the discussion, so the commission hasn't waived the hearing. I'm assuming they probably
won't. We would probably just do it.
do it right tonight.
Yeah.
I don't object to it so long as I can't see it from where I
Right.
sleep.
Right, okay.
I should make a motion to waive the public hearing?
Okay, so motion made to waive the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we waive the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve the modification to allow the 20-foot to move the 16-foot?
Can I ask one
pole
question?
height? Sure.
Did I read something that they were adjusting the conditions of the color?
They've agreed to do that, yeah,
As a result of the height change?
as a result of the condition on the approval already. So they're required to bring it to a warmer color
For the 16-foot poles?
for the 16 or the 20 pole.
Okay.
That was already.
Whichever one.
Okay, gotcha.
Another question.
Sure.
You talked about putting diffusers on LED lights. Is that possible? That's the new
We can ask them.
That's something that needs to be worked through with the regulations.
Well, we can ask them. There's no requirement for it. I mean, it softens them up a little bit so you don't see that sharp prick of light.
Generally, though, with those kinds of lights, they have adjustable lenses in them that will focus the light so that it goes down more than out. Or if you want it to shine this way, you can twist the lens and it'll shine this way. So
They are very flexible.
diffusing that will alter that characteristic and make it much more difficult to aim dependably. So it's one of these things that makes sense for a different characteristic of light, or a different mechanism of light. And for LEDs, the native adjustment features are about as good as you're going to get as far as control. So I would...
It depends. Some of them are just flat out, depends on distribution types, those were old, you know, like the old days, but I don't know how finely made some of these lights are, though you're right, I mean, the technology exists to do that, whether for your standard parking lot light, they bother aiming them differently, it's usually just, they're all aimed the same way as far as I know, but depending on how you want to spread the light.
Yeah, it's just a diffuser by definition will diffuse the light and send it out past where you want it to go.
Not necessarily, I mean, if it's, you know, got a shroud around it, it's only gonna go down, it's not gonna go up or.
Right, but that-
It's still
at
gonna
which
down.
point, at what,
Yeah, I mean, we need to investigate the technology a lot more before we
it's
propose anything,
peculiar
honestly.
to the luminaire.
Yeah.
So this area, this is just a regular parking lot, right? We're not
Right.
where there's boats, right?
I'm sorry?
There's no boats in this park.
No, this was the API application that had, we actually reduced the amount of parking because they only have 4 or 5 people in the facility. It's
Yeah, okay.
basically a storage
But
facility.
it's not a facility that has boats.
No, it's not.
You're laughing, but there's a situation that I'm not gonna say. but-
Okay.
so-
No, it was storage for
One
other.
of these days you're gonna be aware of.
Joe, I don't blame you, we had boats on our mind all night.
Yeah, it was that's a warehouse for American Polyfilm, or,
Yeah, so it's just a.
And I think the lights were
There's no
mostly,
reflection.
and I think the lights were mostly to the
Glare.
front, closer to Sycamore, if I'm remembering
I
it.
think that's right.
So,
And then,
I mean, I'm just concerned for the abutter.
Yeah.
You know, that there's the tree
Yeah, right.
canopy, that, you know, we're
I'm
not.
concerned about the abutter too, and there's a situation with, that can glare on boats that are.
Oh, it could reflect.
It reflects.
Gotcha.
Okay, I think we had the motion made and seconded, or did we get a second? Did someone?
Second.
Okay, second. Any further discussion?
Who made the motion?
No, I made the motion public hearing, but I'll make the motion to approve.
Oh, I think I asked for the motion. No one actually made it because we got the question.
yeah.
Didn't ask the
So we
question.
sort of backed in,
So
so
I'll
we got
also
a
make the
second.
motion to
She'll make the
approve,
motion to approve.
And
John made it
I second it.
as long as
Yeah.
there's no boats.
Right, as long as there's no boats. And again, it's to allow a 20-foot high light poles rather than 16 feet, which means fewer.
Fewer fixtures.
Yeah. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay.
And then you
Thank
could
you.
ask them also about diffusing and anything else to whatever. I mean,
Yeah, we can ask.
I don't know what.
I'm not
it's-
sure this
whatever
is the location for that.
Yeah, but I mean, just, that's not part of whatever, just ask them. Okay, so where were we on our agenda? We're on other business. We have a bond release. We got 5 items here. We're not done, right? It's
The
only-
draft, according to the draft minute agenda, we were done.
Other business,
I know, according
okay.
to the draft agenda, we were done.
That's why, you know,
It's a
you're
draft.
behind the times. Okay, the
everyone
bond
go by
release,
draft.
84 North Main Street. What do we got?
We have a request to return a bond for landscaping at the expansion of 84 North Main Street. We have a memo from the zoning enforcement officer saying she's inspected the site, she's satisfied with landscaping, and she's recommending full return of the bond in the amount of $7,500.
Is there a motion for the bond release in accordance with what Harry just read?
So moved.
Motion made by Joe, is there a second?
So second.
Second by John. Further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that bond's released.
When I have a meeting in Boston tomorrow, I'm gonna prepare for
Go home, prepare to get some
He's
sleep.
working on the draft agenda.
That's right.
See you Monday.
Item number 2, bond release for 26 Summer Island Road.
This concerns a bond that was for site work, final grading, placement of topsoil, and installation of a driveway apron. The zoning officer inspected the site. She's satisfied with the grading, the topsoil, and seeding. However, the driveway with the edge of the road is too wide in the property line. At the property line, it doesn't comply with the driveway regs. So the full amount of the bond was for $2,000. She is recommending the commission retain $554 for the correction of the driveway apron. That also includes funds for lawn establishment. So she would support the release of $1,446.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the bond release as recommended by the zoning enforcement officer, which means we keep $554 for the apron, whatever?
So moved.
So moved by Marcy, is there a second?
So second.
Second by John for discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
3, meetings.
Meetings. you don't need to vote on this tonight, but we wanted to propose, and if you recall earlier, we were talking about January doing the second and fourth Thursday instead of the first and third. I will pass this out, this is a draft. And for February, it would be the first and third, March, April, May, June, July, and August, as traditionally commission has not done, there would be no meetings. September, October, November, all first and third Thursdays. December, we're suggesting the second Thursday of the 10th, so that you wouldn't be having a meeting the week right after Thanksgiving. So we would need to verify that we can secure the meeting room here for the January meetings and the December 10th meeting. I think we're usually on, they automatically put us on, I think, for the first and third Thursday. We'll verify that also. And also run these against any religious holidays to make sure we're not running afoul of that. So we do all that for the next meeting. If anybody else has any suggestions or there's issues with what's being proposed, you can let us know.
Great.
We'll be ready to go next meeting, hopefully.
Okay, great. Thanks, Harry. Item number 4, discussion election of officers. I think in our bylaws, our December meeting, is it our December meeting? We elect officers.
You nominate Paul to be the secretary because he's not here?
What we typically have done is have an alternate, canvass the regular members, I guess, and to see if people are interested in being officers and what the slate would be and stuff like that.
I think Paul did it last year.
I think Paul may have done it in the last.
I think Dave did it last year.
What? Or
Dave?
yeah, actually,
Is
Dave
Dave
did do it
even
last
on,
year.
is he still here?
It's been a while, but
Just a memory.
I guess it's still a memory, yeah.
Was it his cup of tea?
Well, I don't think we should have Dave do it since it's been a while.
I nominate Paul to do it.
Well, we can do Paul or Fred.
You gotta nominate him for something because he left early.
You want to get him, really? Whatever. Is he willing to do it? I don't know. Fred has the virtue of being right here.
Fred could do it. You want him to?
What do you want me to do?
Be secretary?
We got to check, no. But right now, we have a chair and a secretary. We don't have a vice chair, because who needs vice chairs? But
I think we should have a vice chair so that I don't have to cover for you.
You did a great job covering for me.
I think the.
Yeah, I've heard nothing. I
The
gotta live up
vice-
to Marcy, that's all I've heard. Marcy did such a great job.
Meeting was a lot shorter.
That's right. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know. Maybe Marcy's willing to continue as secretary, doing the able job, and, I'm probably willing to continue, but someone else wants to do it. It's out there. So, anyway, we need to get someone
I
to,
think we should have a vice chair.
It's not
though.
broke.
I like that suggestion.
yeah, if someone wants a vice chair, we can be a vice chair.
Change the
We can
bylaws.
check. So that's what we're going to, I guess that's traditionally how we've done it, is we have an alternate, check with people and see, who's interested. And then, then we have an election, okay, put the signs out.
P&Z fraud.
That's
Wait,
right.
that way.
Right. So, are you interested? or-
Listen, I would volunteer,
All right, good. You can check and.
like the Army,
Right. Okay, so Fred's gonna canvass us and see what we're interested in doing, whatever, so. Okay, so that's, we don't do that till our December meeting, so. So, anything else on that? Okay, great, then, planners report.
Really have nothing additional. However, I'd probably be approving 2, then maybe a third one, minor site plan changes, so I'll just report those out at the next meeting.
Okay, great.
Okay.
That's it. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
okay?
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.